Chapter 51 Even though you're a fellow hunter, I feel bad for poisoning a child. May God forgive me. Leon glared at the poison master, who was gloating from afar. The poison master was the weakest of everyone present, but he was crafty. Leon knew the chances of him handing over the antidote were slim to none. The car Leon was standing on was in the path of the quicksand's tidal wave, which was swallowing everything in its way. Jumping off the vehicle, Leon landed behind the poison master, his nails like claws, ready to rip into the man. Burying his hand into the hunter's back, Leon ripped out his spine. The hunter collapsed to the ground, dead. Tossing aside the length of bone and nerve tissue, Leon searched through the hunter's pockets until he found a small black pill. The rest of the hunters caught onto Leon's actions and rushed him. After seeing how easily he had taken out the poison master, they didn't hold back. Suddenly surrounded on all sides, Leon smiled as he created a field around himself, freezing the hunters in time. Placing his hand on one of the hunters' chests, he focused on their heart. Repeating the process with each of them, Leon unfroze them one by one, watching as they grasped their chests before collapsing. Note to self: freezing a person's heart while they're moving is an instant kill. That's 4 taken care of, now time to claim my bounty. The tidal wave subsided, and Karudo smiled at Leon. I have to thank you for taking care of the gnats, but I'm going to need that antidote. Give it to me, and I promise I'll let you live. Leon sighed as he started to approach Karudo. You villains never seem to learn, you're never the strongest. Throwing the pill on the ground, Leon watched Karudo's face shift from fear to anger as Leon slowly crushed the antidote under his heel. Why you bastard? You're immune to the poison, aren't you? Bingo! Karudo screamed in rage as the ground around him turned into quicksand that started to spread. If I'm going to die, I'm taking you with me. The quicksand started to move, turning into a whirlpool as it began to suck everything in. Leon jumped away as the vicious sand reached him. You're not getting away this time. The sand formed tendrils that flew toward Leon, trying to restrain him, creating a bubble. Leon stalled the sand for a few seconds before it broke through. Karudo laughed as his constant assault forced Leon to retreat. This guy is starting to get on my nerves. Leading the sand tendrils into the ground, Leon moved his body into double time. With a clear shot, Leon ran across the whirlpool of sand. He was moving so fast that the sand was blasted away by the barrier of air around him. Karudo grunted as Leon punched him at the speed of sound. Karudo's thin body folded around Leon's fist before the force sent him flying into the distance, crashing to the ground with an explosion of dust and a thunderclap. Walking over to the crash site, Leon looked down at Karudo, his head at an odd angle. Oh yeah, he's dead. Leon wondered how he would get his money, but his phone vibrated at that exact moment, and Leon saw that his bank account had one more zero. Clicking his heels, Leon waited for the disposal team before leaving it to the professionals. Making his way back to the city, Leon retired to his hotel room and ordered room service. In the morning, Leon didn't feel like doing anything when his phone rang. Picking up his phone, Leon didn't recognize the number, but he answered anyway. Hey Leon, how's it going? Leon sat up and smiled. Yuvagin, how did you get my number? I had to threaten and pay this hacker to do a bunch of stuff so I could reach you. I don't have much time, though. I'm just here to give you a warning, the Mafia has been tailing us for a while now. Leon nodded. Same. I dealt with a group of them, but since then, I haven't had any trouble. Leon absently wondered if his being a hunter had anything to do with it. You might want to go into hiding until this blows over. It's like we just poked an ant's nest. I have to go now, stay safe. Leon dialed Maki next. We need to meet. Are you free today? Yeah, what's the problem? The Mafia is chasing Yuvagin and his group, and we're in the Mafia's headquarters. Okay. When and where should we meet? After giving Maki the location, Leon got dressed, equipping himself with all kinds of hidden weapons and his sword. Leaving the hotel, Leon walked through the streets, his nen pushed to its furthest range. Besides a few onlookers and potential murderers, nothing set off any alarms. Sitting down on the bench, Leon waited for Maki. A few minutes passed, and Leon started to worry when he finally spotted her. He couldn't help but stare. Maki had changed her hairstyle. It was straightened and cut just below her ear, with bangs right above her eyes. "Stop staring, you're attracting unwanted attention," Maki said as she sat down next to him, looping her arm around Leon's. Leon's head snapped forward as he tried to hide the slight blush on his cheeks. Chapter 52 Maki's heart was beating like a hammer. It was so loud she worried that Leon could hear it. She told herself that she only sat close to him so they wouldn't draw attention. "I think we might need to leave the city. Do you have anywhere safe to go?" Leon asked as he looked around at the passing crowd. Maki paused. "I can disappear if needed." "Great, so here's what's going to happen." Maki suddenly stood up and slapped Leon, cutting him off. "Fine, if that's how you feel, I never want to see you again." Maki ran off, and somehow, tears stained her cheeks. "Fine, just go, why don't you?" Leon played along, storming away in the opposite direction. He was surprised that the Ice Queen was such a good actor. "I guess I'm going back home." Pulling out his family phone, Leon dialed the home number. "Master Leon, it's good to hear from you. How are you doing?" Leon smiled when he heard Goto's voice. "It's good to hear from you too. I hope you got out of Meteor City okay," Leon asked as he walked back to his hotel. "It was tricky. After selling all the items, the Mafia caught wind and tried to surround the building, but your father saved me just in the nick of time. I've been working as Tsubone's protege to take over as head butler in a few years. But I digress. What do you need, Master Leon?" Smiling, Leon entered his room and started to pack. "I need you to send an air blimp to my location. It might not be a smooth process, so tell the pilot. I'll have it arranged right away. Oh, and Lady Kikyo wants me to tell you that she's pregnant again and is due sometime within the next 3 months." Leon paused for a second. "Another one. I'm just glad I never caught them doing it. Well, I'm on my way home, so hopefully I'll be there on time. Is that all?" "One more thing, Master Leon. I want to thank you for hiring me. Without your help, I don't know." Goto trailed off. "Don't mention it. I wouldn't want any other person taking care of my family." Leon hung up as he finished packing and grabbed Immer, who had gained some weight after overeating fish from the hotel. Hiring a taxi, Leon paid with his hunter's card. The taxi driver didn't ask any questions before dropping Leon off in the Gordo Desert. Leon only had to wait a few minutes before an air blimp landed in front of him. Refusing any of the snacks or drinks offered to him, Leon thought about how Maki was doing. He had to give it to the pilot. The flight only took an hour, and it was the smoothest flight he had ever been on. Leon made a note to tell Goto to try and hire the woman. Stepping off the blimp, Leon was greeted by Goto and 2 other maids. They went to bow, but Leon waved off their formality. "It's good to talk face to face again, Goto." The butler had a slight smile. "Indeed, Master Leon, but your father wishes to speak to you in his private quarters." Sighing, Leon asked one of the maids to take Immer to his room as he went to talk with his father. Standing outside the door, Leon knocked and awaited his summons. "Come in, son." Opening the door to his father's room, Leon looked around at the familiar couch he used to play on as a kid. "Why do you want to talk to me, Dad?" "I know it's not to apologize for Meteor City," Leon said, standing in front of Silva. "You're right. What I want to talk about is the message I received from Isaac Netero." Leon winced, having hoped to keep his hunter status a secret for a little longer. "Well, the cat's out of the bag. Are you here to discipline me?" I asked, starting to draw circles on the ground. "I am not here to ridicule or poke holes in your judgment. Having a hunter's license is a precious tool. But what I'm more concerned about is the assignment he offered you." Leon immediately knew what he was talking about. The Dark Continent. I told the old man no. I followed the rules. Silva nodded. "You did. But to every rule, there are exceptions. Your uncle is still alive on the Dark Continent. He's been working for the family all this time, trying to create a place for the Zoldyck family to expand to." "What do you mean, expand?" Leon asked, leaning forward. 2 decades ago, my brother was also a hunter and was chosen to go on a mission to explore the Dark Continent. But his loyalty lay with the family, so he was given a secret agenda: fake his death and stay on the island to create a haven. The goal was to eventually send our own soldiers and make the Dark Continent our own. Chapter 53-. Leon was stunned that anyone could survive on that land for more than a year. From the stories his mother told him, it was a land of nightmares. You'd want to kill yourself after a day or two. "How do you know Uncle Zig is still alive?" Leon asked, still stunned by the information. "Every 2 years, we drop a care package, and in return, Zig always sends us resources from the Dark Continent. Everything you need to know is in this book," Silva said, tossing Leon a small leather-bound book. Flipping to a random page, Leon looked at the detailed drawing and explanation of a pebble that could power a house when submerged in water. Then there was a grain of rice that was possibly the answer to immortality. Against his better judgment, Leon started to look forward to the day he could visit the tamed land. "But why are you telling me all of this?" Silva smiled. "Because you need to start preparing for when you will go to the Dark Continent, in 10 years. "Huh? The entire fate of the family is riding on your shoulders. I know it's a lot of responsibility, but you have the potential to be stronger than all of us." On that note, Leon left his father's room, still a little stunned. Silva had given him the book so he could study the flora and fauna of the Dark Continent. Retiring to his room, Leon picked up Immer the fat cat from his bed and placed him on his chest. While the cat was now the size of a medium-sized dog, he was still within cuddle range. "Maybe I could take you with me so I won't be entirely alone, but you're going to have to lose that layer of fat." Immer glared at Leon, but he wasn't willing to give up the heat source, so Immer stayed put. Sighing, Leon opened the book and started to flip through the pages absently. 30 minutes later, Leon got a text from Maki saying that she had disappeared. Smiling, he replied with a thumbs up and closed the app. Leon had nothing else to do, so he mostly watched cartoons in his room and played games, something he hadn't done in a while. The only time he was interrupted was when Maluki walked into his room, hopped on the bed, and started to watch him play games. After giving the 4-year-old a controller, Maluki started to beat Leon to a pulp in the fighting game they were playing. Leon tried his damnedest, but his brother chained combos like a pro, always stunning his character. Luckily, Leon was saved from further embarrassment when a maid knocked on the door to take Maluki away to train. 3 weeks later, Leon waited outside the nursery as his mother prepared to give birth. No one was on edge. There had never been any complications during childbirth in Zoldyck family history. After an hour of waiting, Leon was called into the room to hold his baby brother. His name was Killua, and he had the same head of hair as Leon and Silva. Like most Zoldyck children, he was active, but everyone noticed he had taken a particular liking to Leon. When a maid took him away so his mother could feed him, he cried until he lashed onto her nipple. Leaving the nursery, Leon ran into Illumi on the way out. They spoke briefly, exchanging news about their lives before going their separate ways. Before he forgot, Leon grabbed Immer and introduced him to Mike, then left the cat in the forest to start training. Like any good parent, Leon knew that some fierce love was required, and he didn't have the strength to provide it. Returning to his room, Leon started to study the book again. He didn't know if he would truly visit the Dark Continent, but he'd be damned if he wasn't prepared. Then Leon got to one page titled The 5 Threats. Flipping the page, Leon saw what looked like a giant hole with a mouth, with tiny little eyes peering out from the darkness. And outside the mouth, dangling like ropes, were shriveled up human dolls. The text written below read: A Trade-Off Between Life and Pleasure, Chapter 54 2 years had passed since Leon and his father talked about the Dark Continent. He was 14 now and about 5 feet 8 inches. Most of his time was spent training, but any free time he had, Leon spent playing with his brother Killua. Sometimes Leon caught Killua trailing him from afar, watching him train. Leon would act like he didn't see the head of white hair among the forest's dark colors. He would then turn around a bend and appear behind Killua, ruffling his hair. It became a game between them. Killua would try to stalk him successfully, but so far, he hadn't succeeded once. At one point, Leon became Killua's trainer. When anyone else tried to teach Killua, he would throw a tantrum until he ran out of energy, which could take hours. So Leon entirely took over Killua's training, and he gave their parents reports on his progress. It hurt his heart to see his little brother tortured, but Leon knew it would pay off in the long run. When Killua had his first kill, Leon took him to a bakery and told him to get whatever he wanted. The little bastard almost cleaned him out, but he was smart and started to fake cry when Leon told him he couldn't have any more cake. Leon went to bed that day, defeated, hoisted by his own petard. With a sigh, he woke up to a knock on the door, and sure enough, Killua was standing outside his doorway. Smiling, Leon rubbed Killua's head, ruffling his hair. "Stop it, Leo. Can we go see Immer and Mike?" Killua was the only one who called Leon Leo and got away with it scot-free. "I don't know why you're so enamored with them, but sure. They might be lazy today. They just ate some invaders." Killua didn't seem disheartened and tugged on Leon's arm. Dew coated the leaves of the forest, and the cold morning air kissed their skin. Walking deep into the forest, Leon and Killua found a hill dug out by some animal, with bones littering the ground around the cave. Tossing out the 2 prime ribs he brought, 2 pairs of eyes looked at him from the darkness of the cave. Mike and Immer pounced on the steaks, swallowing them in one bite. They promptly ran over to Leon to see if he had any more treats. "Stop. Sit." Both Immer and Mike promptly sat on their rumps at the simple command, their tails wagging. Leon then gave them the other 2 steaks he brought and rubbed their snouts afterward. Smiling, Leon looked over Immer. In 2 years of hunting and a regular diet of meat and human flesh, the beast had bulked up quickly. Silver fur and black spots covered his body. He was about the size of an elephant, and when Immer moved, you could see muscle ripple beneath his coat. Killua laughed as he jumped up onto Immer's back and rubbed his cheek against his fur. It was relatively soft, and Leon suspected it had water-repellent qualities. "Leo, can we go on a ride? You promised me we could go on a ride last time." Leon sighed, then jumped up onto Immer with Killua in front of him. "Fine. Hold on, though. I don't want Mom riding my ass for this." Digging his heels into Immer's sides, Leon spurred him on as the giant cat started to run through the jungle. Immer seemed to fly across the ground, and Leon could feel Killua's heart pounding with excitement. After their joyride, Immer found a stream and dipped his head to drink. Again. Killua jumped up and down. Leon ruffled his hair. "Sorry, but we have to go back to the manor. Did you already have breakfast or not?" Killua blushed as his stomach rumbled. "I guess that's a no. I'll make you breakfast." Jumping back onto Immer, Leon and Killua rode the leopard back to the manor, entering through the servant's door. When Leon wanted to cook, he had to sneak around to do it. For some reason, the maids and butlers didn't like him cooking. After checking the area, Leon made sure the kitchen was empty before he started cooking. Leon made pancakes, bacon, and eggs. Killua dug in, leaving his brother to his meal. Leon went to his training room. After changing into something more appropriate, he began his routine, 2 hours of cardio with weighted vests, then another 2 hours of sitting underneath a waterfall, focusing on his nen projection. Sparring came next. Leon usually called 3 butlers, fending off their attacks with his sword. He wanted to be prepared in case his nen was ever cut off from him. Some of the creatures on the Dark Continent could drain a person of their nen. After 3 hours of continuous sparring, Leon studied. He found a few articles on the Hunter website about expeditions to the Dark Continent. The consensus was that it was a rugged land few survived, but with danger came treasure. Leon absorbed everything he could. He had accepted that he would visit the accursed land, for his family. While Leon sometimes wanted a break from said family like anyone else, he had started to realize the responsibilities coming his way. He would create a kingdom on the Dark Continent so his family could thrive. No one would underestimate the Zoldyck family again. Short break, hunters. I've got to get back to drawing. So have a great day. Hope you're enjoying the fanfic and let's keep going. Chapter 55-. Another 2 years had passed. Leon was now 16, and quite the looker. After spending so much time indoors, Leon had reached a bottleneck. It wasn't a major one, but he hadn't engaged in a decent battle in 4 years. Instead, he had taken up meditation under a secluded waterfall that Mike had once shown him. When he wasn't meditating, he was managing his family's affairs. A year ago, Leon had approached his father with an interest in taking on more responsibility as the heir. Leon had essentially become the head of the house in all but name. He started by selling some of the family's older assets that would soon lose their usefulness. Using those funds, Leon paid off family debts and old favors. When the time came, he didn't want anyone having leverage over them. His other massive undertaking was a private army. Leon's mother still had some connections in Meteor City, so he began hiring people and training them as a secret force. To them, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The benefits were too good to pass up, healthcare that rivaled that of a CEO of a multi-billion Jenny company. All they had to do was swear life service to the Zoldyck family until an honorable discharge. And the post-service perks were even better. The army was about 2,500 strong, and out of that number, 100 practiced nen. In addition to standard firearms and close-quarters combat training, each recruit specialized in one of 5 fields: assassination, infantry, medics, contractors, and special ops. Every category had 24 generals and 1 major. Leon reserved these posts for nen users only and tasked each general with training a protege to inherit their role if needed. The assassination division was the second smallest, with 150 members. They specialized in eliminating threats of any kind. The infantry division was the largest, with a force of 1,436, the foot soldiers and main muscle of the army. The medics were the second largest group, numbering 600, split into 2 subcategories, combat medics and surgeons. Combat medics stayed on the field to ensure injured soldiers survived long enough to reach the surgeons, who operated back at base. The contractors were divided into 25 10-man squads, each led by a general. They were trained in kidnapping, area control, rescue missions, deployment, and other fieldwork. Lastly, Special Ops was the smallest group, composed exclusively of the 25 strongest nen users, reserved for the most dangerous and critical missions. In this army, Leon established 3 core rules. If you take care of the family takes care of you. The army does not tolerate traitors. Loyalty is rewarded. Leon sighed as he toweled off from his most recent meditation session. He hadn't moved from his spot in 2 days. He didn't regret taking on all these responsibilities, but it was certainly a lot of work. Putting on his clothes, Leon left his secluded training ground and returned to his office. The mansion was on high alert again. Kikyo was pregnant. Leon figured that with him taking over, his parents had even more time to bump uglies. He was just opening the door to his office when Leon's eyes lost all traces of drowsiness. He caught a needle thrown at his forehead and leapt back as 1,000 more came flying his way. Finding the culprit, Leon stopped the projectiles in midair, neutralizing their momentum and letting them drop to the floor. Looking up toward the corner of the room, Leon spotted a miniature turret no larger than a lockbox. There was a string attached to the door. Leon had triggered it when he entered. Sighing, Leon called a maid to clean up the mess and went to search for the culprit. Walking down to the basement, Leon stopped in front of a heavily armored door. Opening it, he found Maluki sitting in front of his PC. "Maluki, what did I tell you about setting traps around the house? If one of the maids had triggered your trap, they might not have escaped injury-free," Leon said, chastising the 8-year-old. "Like they'd enter your room without permission. Everyone knows not to mess with you," Maluki responded without turning around, still playing his game. Sighing, Leon couldn't really fault his logic. "Still, why'd you do it? You're paying for all the damage." "I wanted to test out my new turret. Besides, the bill won't even make a dent in my wallet." A tick mark appeared on Leon's forehead. He walked over to Maluki's shelf of figurines, picked up several rare ones, and walked out. "Well, I'll just keep these for insurance." Before Maluki could react, Leon disappeared down the hallway. "Give back my collection." Leon laughed, shaking his head. Maluki hated it when anyone touched his stuff. After giving back Maluki's toys, after he paid for the damages, Leon sat down in another office space in the mansion. A new shipment of weapons and gear had just arrived for the army, and he needed to check over the finances to make sure everything was legit. "This is going to be a long day." Chapter 56-. Leon groaned and stretched at his desk. He had been there for 4 hours going over paperwork. Most of it had to do with the army. He made sure he knew everything in his army. Every conflict, promotion, demotion, everything was sent in a report directly to him. Leon had learned of too many armies that fell due to miscommunication. He wouldn't let that happen. Just as he was about to start another form, Leon's phone rang. He looked over. It was the phone dedicated to his army. Picking up the phone, Leon answered the call. "This is Leon Zoldyck, identify yourself." He heard the person on the other side salute. "Jane Grove, Major of the Medics." Leon relaxed. "Major Jane, to what do I owe the pleasure?" Leon had met with all the majors and generals. Most of them were former mercenaries, so they fell in line quickly. "I'm afraid I'm here to report a conflict between myself and a subordinate." Leon raised an eyebrow. He had made it clear that anyone could rise in the ranks as long as they proved themselves. "Please give me the name of the other party and the reason for the conflict." Leon searched his desk and found the correct form to fill out. His name was Dane Harris. I had to discipline him for insubordination. After cracking the whip, he seems to have fallen in line. Leon filled out the paper quickly, not missing a beat. "Thank you for your time, Major Jane. I will place a watch on Dane Harris to see if he might do anything further." Dismissed. Leon heard her snap a salute again before the call dropped. Finishing the form, Leon placed it to the side where someone would come to retrieve it in an hour. For once, Leon had a break from all his paperwork and wondered if he should hire a secretary. Before he could weigh the pros and cons, there was a knock at the door. "Come in." Leon looked over and saw one of his maids bringing him a tray with food. "Ah, thank you, Sheila." Sheila was about 5 feet 7 inches with bright red hair and an impressive bust. More than a few times, she had made a pass at him, but Leon had staved off her advances, saying he was committed to someone else. Before I leave, Master Leon, Master Killua has asked if you would come down to the sparring arena. Leon sighed and rubbed his temple. Sure, tell him I'll be down in 20 minutes. Leon used to spar with Killua regularly, but with all his work, it had been months since they last fought. Let's see how much my little brother has improved. Changing into gym clothes, Leon left his sword behind. He wanted this to be a fair fight. He wouldn't use Nen either. For some reason, Leon's parents didn't want him to teach Killua Nen. He knew they had their reasons, so he didn't question it. Leon walked into the room to find Killua shuffling around on his feet, waiting for him. Took you long enough, Leo. I almost left to go find Illumi. Leon shrugged. I could go find him if you want. Killua quickly took back his words and begged Leon to stay. Smiling, Leon dropped the act. Okay, then let's see what you've learned. Killua grinned and put his hands in his pockets as he started to walk toward Leon. Leon immediately recognized what Killua was doing. He let himself be taken into the illusion as Killua's figure split into 2, then 5, and soon Leon was surrounded by a sea of Killuas. It was impressive. Leon had only shown him the trick a month ago, and he was already able to produce so many afterimages. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's see how long you last. In the blink of an eye, Leon duplicated himself instantly. Usually, there was a haze around each illusion, but Killua couldn't spot any difference. Each hair on every head was immaculate. Sorry, little brother, you still have a long way to go. Leon dropped his illusion as he stood behind Killua, his hand on his shoulder. Killua shrugged him off. Damn it, why can I never get the upper hand? Leon smiled. That's because I haven't taught you everything I know. But you could pressure me just a little if you didn't use that technique. Killua stuck out his tongue. Why won't you tell me what the secret technique is? Leon shrugged. It's mom and dad's rule, not mine. If it were up to me, I'd teach you. Aren't you the head of the house by now? You do all the paperwork, and everyone looks up to you. It's not my time. I'm just practicing. I have several plans to see the Zoldyck family grow exponentially, Leon answered, preparing to fight again. Killua attacked Leon, his nails turning to claws as he tried to gouge out Leon's eyes. Care to tell me what those plans are? Leon caught Killua's hand and brought him around in an arm breaker. Sorry, those are just for my mind alone. Killua dislocated his shoulder, breaking the hold, and flipped onto Leon's back. Grinning, Leon grabbed Killua's foot as he tried to jump away. Killua grunted as he crashed against the ground from where Leon had thrown him. Getting to his feet, Killua brushed the dirt off his shoulders. That hurt, Leo. You never go easy on me. Leon smiled, just a bit of his sadistic nature coming out. You won't learn any other way. Chapter 57 After going a few more rounds with Killua, Leon left his younger brother to his own devices. He had work to do. Picking up his phone, Leon dialed Goto. After one ring, the head butler picked up. After several decades serving the family, Subone had eventually retired, though she bought a house nearby and was allowed back on the property whenever she wished. Master Leon, what do you need? Leon smiled at Goto's voice. There's supposed to be a shipment that arrived, so I want it delivered. Also, arrange a flight to take me over to the compound. Of course, Master Leon. I have already arranged for your private blimp to be ready. Leon smiled. You're the best, Goto. I still don't get why any of you guys won't accept a raise. Leon could hear the smile in Goto's voice. Because, sir, we live to serve, and everyone in the family treats us well. Hanging up, Leon went back to his room to shower and change before walking to the landing pad. He grinned when he saw his favorite pilot sitting at the wheel. Hey Sylvia, how do you like your new job? The tall, skinny Asian woman smiled. It's wonderful, Mr. Leon. I have to thank you again for the doctor you hired to treat my mother. Oh, how is Mrs. Feng? I'm sorry for not sending a card, Leon said, leaning against the wall of the cockpit. She's doing well, and I'll make sure to tell her that you wish her well, Sylvia said with a nod as she started up the blimp. Leon made sure to be well liked by the people in his employment. It was so much harder to betray someone who treated you like family. The blimp ride was only a few hours, and as usual, it was smooth. Leon thought it was uncanny how Sylvia could avoid turbulence. A few hours later, Leon heard Sylvia over the loudspeakers. "We're here, sir," Leon sighed as he entered the mindset of a leader. He couldn't be seen as weak in front of his subordinates. Walking down onto the landing pad, Leon looked out at the private island covered in dense jungle. He remembered once running through the same trees. He had bought the island from the Hunter Association. As he understood it, the Dark Continent was also a jungle, so he wanted his troops to be familiar with the environment. Leon didn't walk more than 2 steps before he was surrounded by a company of soldiers, each carrying assault rifles. None of them spoke a word to him as they walked with him into the compound. Leon could see soldiers butchering a giant crab before tossing pieces into a stew pot. Leon had read books about running an army and was a fan of using the carrot and the stick. There was a reward system in place. If you did your job well, you were rewarded. Most of those rewards could be gifted by a ranking officer in the form of meal tickets. Handing them in at lunchtime could get you better meals and desserts, and Leon had no doubt they had become the de facto currency among the troops. When Leon entered the inner compound, he saw Butch, the man in charge, while he wasn't around. "Lord Leon, I wasn't expecting your arrival. Are you here to do an inspection?" Butch was about 6 feet 5 inches, with a thick beard and short snow-white hair. While he was getting up there in age, his muscular build still told everyone not to mess with him. After talking with Butch for a while, Leon would describe him as the perfect soldier. Determined, fierce, and loyal to a fault. I feel it's better to see someone's true nature when they don't know someone is watching them. Butch nodded. "Let's go out to the drill field. Most of the force is there training." Leon nodded and followed Butch to the back, where they came out onto a balcony overlooking a cleared area the size of 3 football fields. "As you see, we have everyone training 8 hours a day, then another 10 going over drills, and weekends are chores and free time," Butch quickly listed off. "How are you providing food for my army?" Leon asked, looking down at the drill sergeants screaming at anyone and everyone. Butch had a smile on his face. "Every week we hold a hunt, where teams go out into the forest and bring back the biggest monster they can find. Winners get to eat free for that week." Leon smiled. "How do you dispose of the bones?" Butch shrugged. "We dump them into the forest for the scavengers to pick clean. Do you want to get a closer view? Would my presence distract the men from their duty? I don't want to be a bother." Butch looked more bothered by the question than Leon had ever seen him. "If you don't mind me saying, sir, you need to be seen by the troops. It will give a boost of morale and spur them on." Leon thought it over for a minute. "You have a point, Butch, but I'll only meet with the commanders and majors." Soon, Butch gathered all 100 NEN users in one room and let them stew for a while before Leon addressed them. "I'm here today to talk to you about my true reason for hiring you." Chapter 58-. "The reason I am here today is to inform you of why I enlisted you." Leon paused again, letting his words settle in. "In 6 years, we will begin to colonize the Dark Continent, a feat never before achieved in human history." Leon could see all their eyes widen, but their training prevented them from speaking out of turn. "Please be at ease. I don't plan on throwing your lives away. If you check the pamphlets in front of you, you'll see a detailed plan to minimize casualties." Leon waited for them to start reading and was pleased to see some of the fear in their eyes fade. "Now, I already have a plan in place to create a haven from which we can start taming the wilderness. Any questions? Leon saw arms shoot up across the room, and he sighed silently. He was going to be here for a while. Yes, Major Jane. Leon pointed to the woman he had recently spoken with over the phone. Jane stood up and snapped a salute. What is the purpose of us invading the Dark Continent? As I understand it, all that awaits us is death. Leon nodded. If you flip to page 134, you'll see the benefits of cultivating the resources. Leon watched as their eyes widened at the plans and calculations showing the profits involved. And before you can ask any more questions, I need to tell you about the power backing me. My full name is Leon Zoldyck, heir to the most powerful assassin clan in the world. For years, we have been planning for this. I must now expand the family into a kingdom. Leon spoke with vigor. If you wish to be a part of my future, I promise you the benefits you can reap will be infinite. But as with any opportunity, there is danger. There will be casualties. I know none of you are strangers to death, most of you have brought it upon others. You can choose not to be on the front lines, but your contract will not allow desertion. I need men and women who will fight for what they know lies ahead. If, not when, this happens, all of you in this room will achieve status and power only kings dream of. Now tell me, do you want to spend your life constantly on the lookout for the next job? Or do you want to secure your future in my family, our kingdom? Leon looked at everyone. He filled the room with his aura, that of a king addressing his people. After a minute of silence, Leon smiled. I take your silence as your determination. I know that you won't fail me. You are all dismissed. Leon and Butch watched as everyone trickled out of the room. In a few minutes, Leon and Butch were alone again. So, how did I do? Leon asked, raising an eyebrow at Butch. You may have gone a tad bit overboard with the kingdom bit, but I recognized the look in their eyes when you spoke. They're soldiers at heart, most of them will follow you into hell and beyond. Leon let out a sigh of relief. Good. Well, I need to be going, people to see. Leon was escorted out of the compound and onto his blimp within 5 minutes. Calling Goto on his phone, Leon waited for him to pick up. Is there anything you need, Master Leon? I need you to start looking into private contractors, construction crews, masons, miners, everything we might need in the future. Of course, Master Leon. Should I buy the entire company or hire them for a few years? Also, should I buy raw resources? Leon thought it over for a minute. Sure. Look into buying precious metals and gems as well. We should start diversifying our assets. Leon put down his phone. As he smiled, his mind filled with plans for the future. Back at home, Leon returned to the pile of paperwork that had grown during his brief time away. No rest for the wicked, Leon sighed as he picked up his pen and looked over the first form he would have to sign and approve. After spending the rest of the day looking over papers and signing forms, Leon had had enough. He called for Goto to see if any of the maids were training in management and, if so, to have all his paperwork brought to them and increase their pay by 10%. Leon remembered what he once read in a book, any good leader is only as great as the people behind him. Finishing the last form, Leon decided to turn in for the night. Only 6 more years until all my plans can finally be put into action. Chapter 59 A still lake teemed with life, large rainbow koi swimming through the water in a secluded mountain. In the middle of the lake was a small stone island, no larger than a manhole cover. Leon was sitting on the outcropping, his hair so long it trailed in the water behind him. He was naked, his dignity covered by a layer of mist that was ever present on the surface of the lake. Leon clasped his hands at his navel. He looked more like a statue than a living person. He seemed one with nature, as birds landed on his legs and shoulders to rest. Opening his eyes for the first time in 2 years, Leon smiled. He needed to get going if he was going to make it in time. Wading through the shallow water, Leon constantly emitted an aura like a still lake. Even if one dropped a mountain into it, not a single ripple would form. Picking up the robe he had left there years ago, Leon saw that it was now short on him. "I'm going to have to go clothes shopping again," Leon sighed. He was 20 now, a fully fledged adult. He had entered seclusion 2 years ago to grow even stronger. Now it was time to rejoin society. Now, which way is the house? Should I even go back? Killua might be mad at me. I didn't even tell him I was leaving. Sighing, Leon squatted before jumping in the direction he thought his house was. After soaring through the air for a few minutes, Leon landed and jumped again. His memory proved correct as he saw the manor down below. Landing at the front door, Leon found it already open. Smiling, Leon looked over at Godo, who had a slight smile on his face. "Welcome back, Lord Leon. How has your training been going?" Leon raised an eyebrow. "Lord? What happened to Master?" Godo smiled. "You're 20 now, my lord. Your father officially transferred the title of head of the family to you. Also, Master Killua wanted you to have this." Opening the letter, Leon scanned over the message and snorted after reading it. That little brat. Is this how he wanted to get even? Going off to become a better hunter than me. Folding up the note, Leon put it in his pocket. "Godo, do you have a summary of everything that's happened over the last 2 years in my absence?" "You'll find it all in this packet, Lord Leon, everything from our supplies to an influx in numbers." Leon smiled. "You always know what I'll need." Godo pushed up his glasses. "Well, that is my job, my lord. I also have your blimp on standby. I believe you must be going." Leon nodded and ran off to his room. When he opened his dresser, he found a set of clothes tailored to his new size. Shaking his head at how lucky he was to have such a good butler, Leon quickly showered and changed. Saying a brief hello to Sylvia, Leon waited out the flight, reading the memo Godo had composed for him. His private army had grown to over 3,000, and their funds were in the billions, nearing trillions. Butch had a good idea, hiring out the army as a private force. There hadn't been any casualties, so Leon was okay with it. He wondered how his friends would react when he offered them a unique opportunity. Sylvia touched down just outside of Meteor City's wasteland, and Leon looked at the familiar sight of burning buildings and gunpowder. "We never said where we were going to meet up, so I guess I'll go see if the warehouse is still standing." Leon wasn't surprised to find a pile of rubble where the warehouse used to be. "I guess I'm the first one here." Sighing, Leon had nothing better to do, so he waited. Luckily, he wasn't the only one who understood punctuality. "Pakinoda, glad you're here. At least it won't be too boring." Leon stood up and walked over to the sharp-dressed woman. "Leon, it's so good to see you after all these years." They hugged briefly. "How long have you been waiting?" Leon shrugged. "Only an hour or so. What have you been up to?" Pakinoda absently looked around. "I used my abilities to extract information from people, then sold it on the market. What about you?" "I took over the family. I was mostly a desk jockey for a few years." Over the next 2 hours, everyone reunited, and the sun began to set. And Leon wasn't disappointed. He had no doubt they could take over a country in a few days if they wanted. "I'm glad everyone was able to make it. In the past 10 years, we've all grown stronger. I also had much to think about. What does our future hold?" Leon gazed into Krolo's eyes. It was the look of a man who had seen the worst of society and still endured, and Leon had to smile at that. Krolo went on about how they were all stronger and how he wanted to form a group called the Phantom Troop. Leon wasn't ecstatic about the name, but he agreed anyway. Krolo then told them about the spider, how any part, even the head, was replaceable. After giving his entire spiel, Krollo looked over. Leon, you have something to say? The assassin smiled. What would you all think about becoming the most powerful kingdom on the planet? Chapter 60 - You've been planning this, haven't you, Leon? Krollo's eyes pierced into Leon's. My position as the head of the family has opened up a wide array of opportunities. Uvogin chuckled. I know that scheming look in your eyes. Stop sitting on it and explain to us what's got you all riled up. Leon rubbed his hands together. Okay, then let me start my monologue. After becoming a hunter, I was offered a job by Isaac Netero to join an expedition to attempt and tame the most dangerous place on Earth, the Dark Continent. Though I turned it down right away, after returning home and speaking with my father, I found that my uncle had created a haven inside the Dark Continent. What's so special about this place? It's just another landmass, albeit a more dangerous one, Nobunaga said. Leon grinned at Nobunaga. That's the exciting part. Where we are right now is called the known world, comprised of 6 continents and 250 countries separated by a vast ocean. The thing is, it's not an ocean at all. It's a lake, or more specifically, Lake Mobius, a body of water located in the center of the Dark Continent. Phaeton scowled. You don't mean to say that the entirety of humanity is confined to one lake? Leon shrugged. Nobody knows for sure. I found out that the original inhabitants of the known world migrated from the Dark Continent. So why do you want to create a kingdom in the one place our ancestors fled from? Uvogin questioned, leaning against a pile of rubble. Don't tell us you've gone stir-crazy trying to find answers to impossible questions, Maki said. Leon ignored Maki and reached into his pocket, pulling out a tinted vial. Nobunaga squinted at the vial, trying to see through the glass. Why is the glass so dark? You can't even see what's inside. But I can sense something in there, almost like it's alive. Leon pulled out the cork sealing the vial, letting a soft green light shine into the sky. Tipping the vial over, he held out a single grain of glowing green rice. This is a sample of grain my uncle started cultivating. It's called nitro rice. This grain is supposed to be the key to immortality. After a moment, Leon returned the rice to the vial and corked it again. How come I sensed enough nen from a single grain of rice that I thought it was alive? Nobunaga said, still in disbelief. This is only a small portion of the profits we can reap. Just imagine shipping pounds of this grain to the highest bidder. Leon could almost see the money signs popping up in everyone's eyes. I say we put it up to a vote. Leon hasn't led us astray yet. I don't see why he would now, Krollo said, raising his hand in favor of the idea. In the end, everyone raised their hands, and Krollo turned to Leon. You have our full attention, Leon. Our faith rests in your hands. How about we reconvene at a more suitable location? I can also show you our army while we're there. Leon had Sylvia pick them up and fly them to the island where his army was training. Goto had highlighted a passage in his report. More than 70% of the army had learned Nen and developed a Hatsu. There's no way you bought this place, Maki said, looking down at the island. Leon smiled. Goto notified me when it was on sale, and I couldn't pass up the offer. Butch greeted their group, and Leon noticed that he was more than a little tense. Hey Butch, can you have one of the conference rooms prepared? And make sure everyone knows to stay clear of it. Butch didn't utter a word before running off. I hope your other subordinates don't flee so readily, Uvogin said as he looked at the fortified compound. You have to understand, no one in the world can rival us in pure strength. It's not that strange to have that reaction. Also, you're letting your bloodlust leak through. Uvogin chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head. Damn, has it been that long since I've been in combat? Leon sighed, and in less than a minute, they were escorted to a conference room. Okay, so here's the plan. In 2 months, the expedition will begin with over 10,000 hunters joining. I will join the main force and ensure that they fail to establish any permanent base. While that's happening, you all will drop with our troops at the haven. When the time comes, I'll break away from the expedition and meet up with our own." Leon showed a poorly drawn map of the Dark Continent, most of it barely hinting at what awaited them. "If we can pull this off, I estimate it will only take a year before we become the major power in the known world," Leon said as he finished his presentation. "Any questions?" Uvogin frowned. "We have to wait another 2 months. Why can't we just depart now and get a head start? There are over 3,000 men and women I have to ship overseas. Such a large movement will surely be noticed by someone. Once the Hunter expedition sets out, everyone in the world will be focused on them, giving us some breathing room. I don't want anyone to know of our plan until we have a foothold." Chapter 61 2 months later, Leon got a message on his phone telling him where he would join the expedition. Looking at the included map, Leon saw the area was at a private airfield where they would take off. Packing his bags and saying goodbye to his family and servants, Leon departed for the expedition. He didn't ask Silva to fly him, as he didn't want to draw any unwanted attention. Pulling up to the airfield gate, Leon flashed the guards his license before they buzzed him in. People crowded the runway, milling around and checking over gear. Leon found himself walking toward the most potent aura in the area, as that's where he would find the madman behind all of this. Netero was inside a large trailer, and Leon could sense a few other signatures in the room. Knocking on the door, Leon waited. "Ah, it seems our special guest has arrived. Beans, if you wouldn't mind getting the door." Leon stepped back as the door opened, and he looked down to see a small green creature with a smooth, bland head and no nose. Entering the room, Leon looked at the people sitting at the conference table. Leon grinned as he felt their eyes trying to see through him. Letting out his aura, Leon pushed theirs back and was about to go a step further when Netero cleared his throat. "Please, Mr. Zoldyck, restrain yourself. We don't have long to talk." Snorting, Leon walked over to the chair the Beans creature had pulled out for him. "Now that we're all present, we can begin." Leon wasn't listening as he scanned the people sitting at the table. He recognized the group as the Zodiacs, the 12 hunters directly under the Hunter Association's chairman. Leon didn't like being in this room. The guards at the gate told him to find Netero and nothing else. "Now, Mr. Zoldyck, I am so glad that you agreed to join us in this historic event. Especially since you'll be leading it." Leon's eyes widened slightly before he reined in his surprise. "Why me? Surely there is someone else more qualified." Netero chuckled. "I think you downplay your knowledge about the Dark Continent and your strength." Leon's face was schooled into a stony mask. "Still, you must have your own experts. This event has been 10 years in the making, to my knowledge." "Ah yes, but I know your type. You plan for every scenario, and with your family's ties and resources, you must know something we don't. And you'll play on that something, so you come out ahead," Netero said, leaning back in his chair. Leon narrowed his eyes. The old man knew what he was planning, or he had an idea. "Tell me, Isaac, what do you seek in the Dark Continent?" Netero was silent for a minute as he and Leon locked eyes before he sighed and looked away. "People forget that long ago, I was once a hunter as well. I miss the feeling of being out in the field. I plan to make this my last hunt in hopes of opening a new world for future generations." Leon nodded in understanding. "Then how about I make both our dreams a bit easier?" Netero looked up at that. "What do you propose?" Leon smiled. "Hypothetically, if I had a secure area that could act as a base for any future hunters wanting to explore the Dark Continent, what would you say to an agreement between the Kakan Empire and the Hunter Association?" Leon couldn't help but grin at the surprised look on everyone's faces. "You don't mean to say that your family has?" Leon nodded at Netero's question. "The Zoldyck family is no longer a clan of assassins. We have created a kingdom on the Dark Continent. In a few months, this will become public knowledge. Netero's face lost all signs of cheerfulness. What do you want, Leon? Leon leaned back in his chair, not pressured at all from the aura Netero was emitting. Sorry, but that's for me and mine to know. But here's what I'm offering: sign an agreement that the Hunter Association won't set up any permanent buildings on the Dark Continent outside the Republic's domain. In return, Hunter's findings can be traded in for resources only found on the Dark Continent. You're bluffing. Entire governments have tried to tame that land. And you think a measly assassin clan can do the same? Leon glared at the man who had spoken out. He was slim with a very short haircut, protuberant ears, and a monkey-like face. His name was Seiyu, the monkey Zodiac. Reaching into his pocket, Leon pulled out the same tinted vial and uncorked it. Netero and the Zodiacs weren't able to stop the surprise from flashing across their faces. As you all know what this is, I can assure you I am not bluffing. So Isaac, what do you say? Leon could see it in his eyes. The man had no reason to refuse. It seemed like both sides would benefit. But as he said before, Leon would always come out ahead. I'll agree to it, but we'll work out the exact details at a later date once you show me this supposed haven. Leon smiled and stood up. Great. I'll have my lawyer send over the paperwork. Until next time, Isaac. Leon was just out the door when he stopped. Oh, it was good to see you after all this time, Sacco. Maybe we can have another arm wrestling contest. Leon left as the horse-faced man smiled. When he was far enough from the trailer, the smile melted off his face before he teleported into a secluded part where there weren't as many people. Picking up his phone, Leon texted Godo what had happened and to deploy the troops and builders they'd hired immediately, and start making permanent buildings in the haven to make it look like a real city. We're going to have a little open house. Leon grinned and shut off his phone. Chapter 62 Plans had changed. Leon didn't expect the old man to be so cunning, but he had to give him credit. Now all they had to do was sell him on the idea of going into an alliance with them. Even if they didn't, Leon knew Netero wouldn't wage an all-out war against him. And if it came down to it, Leon was sure he could take him in a fight, but that was a very worst-case scenario. Leon didn't know what kind of state the haven was in, but he hoped his people had enough time to get in there and start making the place look presentable. Sighing, Leon rubbed his temples. This was not how he wanted things to go, but he had a backup plan. This might even be better. If he could get the Hunter Association on his side, their growth would grow exponentially. From his brief interaction with other hunters, Leon knew the lot would be greedy and thirsty for power. All he had to do was bend that greed to suit his purposes, and make sure it didn't end up biting him in the ass. A few minutes later, Leon got a text from Godo saying Netero had signed the contracts. For the duration of the trip, the Hunter Association wouldn't try to set up any base outside the haven. Leon felt some weight lifted off his shoulders. While Netero was crafty, he didn't take the man as someone who would outright backstab you in an alley. Leon then got another text. He recognized the number as one of the family transmitters he had given the Phantom Troop members. "Who is it?" Leon asked. "Leon, what's going on over there? They're saying that you want us to fly out this instant and start to build up infrastructure." Leon could almost feel Maki's glare coming through the phone. "Tell this only to the other troop members. There's been a slight change in plans. Netero knew about the haven, and I'm going to let him see it." "Go on," Maki said in a cold voice. "So we signed a contract. If we can sell him on the idea that we can provide the right conditions, no hunters will be allowed to set up any operations outside the Republic." Leon could hear the gears turning in Maki's head. "It's not like I had a choice. They were going to force me to lead the expedition. I have the advantage here. Trust me. Everything will turn out just fine. Maybe even better. Maki sighed. I know the rest of the troop will put their trust in you as they have before. Just don't let this be the first time you don't deliver. Leon nodded and said, Thanks, Maki, I love you, before quickly hanging up, grinning like an idiot. In a few hours, people started to load themselves into airships. They were the larger kind used to ship cargo across the ocean. Each could carry about 2,000 people. Leon had bought 5 of them for his people to make it there on time. Instead of boarding with the others, Leon was pulled aside to a fancier blimp where he saw the Zodiacs boarding earlier. Netero wanted to keep an eye on him. No doubt, they were about to enter the most dangerous place on the planet. It was a wise move. If Leon were in Netero's situation, he wouldn't want any unknown variables just floating around. Leon didn't speak to anyone inside the blimp, acting like they didn't exist. The flight was long and monotonous. For the entire ride, Leon could feel the Zodiac's eyes on him, each waiting to see if he would do anything. But his training in seclusion wasn't for nothing. Leon estimated that only 3 people in the entire world could challenge him, and 2 of them were in his family. So he wasn't worried at all. The entire trip took 3 days. As they drew closer and closer to their destination, Leon could feel the atmosphere grow tense. When they finally touched down, Leon was white-knuckling his armrest. They were here, in the dark continent. Stepping out of the cramped airship was a blessing on its own, as Leon had barely moved from his seat. Looking around, the airship had landed on an island surrounded by a swamp. Reaching out, Leon could feel the surrounding area teeming with life, and much to his surprise, some of the creatures had activated Nen nodes. The larger blimps were slower than the one they were flying, so it would take them another day to arrive. The Dark Continent. I never thought I would step foot in this place ever again. Leon looked over at Netero, who was looking around in awe, as were the rest of the Zodiacs. I suggest we don't stay in place too long. Our entrance has undoubtedly drawn attention. And I, for one, don't plan on dying to the first creature we come across, Leon said as he started walking in a seemingly random direction. Netero turned to Leon. Where are you going so quickly? To a warm shower and bed. If we don't dawdle, we can make it there before nightfall. Also, tell your people where we're heading. I don't want to send out rescue parties to find lost hunters, Leon said over his shoulder as he started to run. Netero grinned as the feeling of being in the hunt surrounded him. Well, you heard him. I don't know about you, but I want that shower. Netero started to run after Leon, forcing the Zodiacs to follow suit. Chapter 63 As they were running through the marshlands, Leon heard it. At first, it was no more than a drone, but soon it became a cacophony of noise. It sounded like a swarm of insects. A shadow covered Leon, Netero, and the Zodiacs, and the buzzing was so loud it was like a jet plane was flying directly over them. Looking up, Leon cursed at what he saw. It was a swarm of mosquitoes. There must have been millions, as they covered the sky above them. Everyone stop using Nen, and use Zetsu. If you don't, you die. Everyone looked at Netero, wondering why they would deprive themselves of protection, but Leon immediately stopped running and concealed his presence. The Zodiacs followed suit, and everyone waited to see if the swarm would move on. After a minute, the throng moved on, apparently unable to sense them any longer. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Chairman, what was that? They were just regular insects. The one who spoke was Jing, the boar Zodiac. Nothing here is normal. Even a mosquito can kill you, especially since the ones here consume your Nen instead of blood, Leon said as he observed their surroundings. Mr. Zoldyck is correct. I suggest we don't use Nen unless the need arises or until we are out of this swamp. Everyone nodded, and Leon retook the lead. While they weren't using Nen, their bodies were more robust than the average person's. The water they were trekking through became deeper, and Leon was starting to think about changing course when they entered a mangrove. The mangrove trees were almost as tall as buildings, with thick, sturdy branches. Thanking his lucky stars, Leon started to run along the trees, and the others followed. Looking over his shoulder, Leon checked that they still had everyone with them. "How far away is this base of yours? We've been running for hours and it's still not in sight." Leon looked over at Jing, who couldn't seem to keep his mouth shut. "If you want to just run ahead and get yourself killed, go ahead. Now shut your lip before I do it for you." Jing looked like he wanted to say something more, but a stern look from Netero silenced him. Leon sighed. "How about we focus on finding a secure place for the night? My people might even be able to send out a search party." No one spoke up to reject the idea, so that became their new focus. After splitting up into separate parties, Netero's group reported they had found a small cave inside a cliff face. Before going inside the cave, Leon activated the tracker on his personal transmitter and attached it to the cliff with a length of rope. They would wait until morning, and if no one arrived to escort them to the haven, they would make the rest of the trek on their own. Somewhere far away, all members of the Phantom Troop had their personal transmitters vibrate, and they all saw that someone in their team had activated the tracker. Maki sighed as she stood up from her meal. "It looks like Leon needs our help. Are you coming?" The person across from Maki smiled as he stood up as well. "Why wouldn't I want to see my nephew? If he's anything like you described him, this should be exciting." Back in the cave, Leon was sitting up against the cave wall. No one was talking. Everyone was tired and miserable. Leon honestly didn't know why. Couldn't they see the path ahead of them? Their brief encounter had shown Leon how strong the creatures here could be. Those insects from before could sense Nen, meaning they often hunted creatures that used Nen. Leon could even feel it in the air. Somehow the entire dark continent had an aura. Leon didn't know how, but he was going to figure it out. In the morning, everyone was ready to set out. No one had slept a wink, and they were all in somewhat dour moods. Taking back his transmitter, Leon took the lead again after checking where they were on the map. The first 5 minutes of the trip were peaceful, as the sun had yet to fully rise. But then all hell broke loose. The first thing to attack them was a giant piranha, about the length of a school bus. It started to slam its body into the tree they had stopped in, trying to shake them loose like low-hanging fruit. Then it jumped out of the water, snapping its lockjaw fangs. No one wanted to compete against the thing in its home territory. Next came a swarm of bats, and one of them latched onto the neck of Kanzai, the tiger Zodiac. In the split second the bat was on his neck, it ended up draining him of nearly a quarter of his Nen. At that moment, they had a discussion about whether they should continue on. Leon was insistent that they could make it, but he was outnumbered. Just as he was about to give in, he could sense another group moving toward them. "Someone's coming for us, and they're ready to fight." While the Zodiacs looked worried, Leon was relieved. But Netero couldn't believe what was happening. "No. It can't be. I saw you die with my own eyes." Chapter 64 - Author note: I made a mistake. Ziggy is not Leon's uncle, he is Zeno's father, making Ziggy Leon's great-grandfather. Sorry for the confusion. Netero still couldn't believe his eyes as Ziggy stopped right in front of him. He hadn't seen his friend in decades. "Ziggy, is it you?" The man known as Ziggy smiled. "Of course it's me, but I have to ask, how did you get so old?" Netero shook his head as he noticed Ziggy didn't look a day over 30. He was about 6 feet tall with spiky white hair that stuck out in all directions. His mouth always seemed to form a Cheshire grin, with playful eyes to match. "Now, I think that's enough of a reunion for now. We need to get going. It's almost noon, and that's when the big boys come out to play," Ziggy said while looking over the group. Leon was standing next to Maki, who had opted to come along with the search party. The search party comprised a contractor team, standing at attention and always ready to act. Then there was Netero and the Zodiacs. Netero had a slight smile on his face, he couldn't wait to catch up with his long-lost best friend. While the Zodiacs looked lost and confused, Ziggy spurred them all on, and they started to move even faster than before. While they were running, Ziggy caught up to Leon. "So you're the great-grandson that my son keeps bragging about. I have to say, I'm impressed." Leon grinned. "And you're my other grandfather, the one my dad calls insane for surviving here alone." Ziggy laughed, unembarrassed. "I like you, kid. Once we get back to the Haven, we're going to spar. It's been a while since I thought anyone could reach my level." "I accept your challenge. I haven't had a real fight in ages," Leon said with joy, and they both laughed at that, drawing strange looks from the Zodiacs. For the first time, Leon was able to see how his men acted in a combat situation. They formed a circle around Leon, Maki, and Ziggy when Jing asked why they weren't protecting the rest. The commander chuckled, "You're not my priority. I only care about those three." Even though their numbers had almost doubled, it didn't guarantee their safety. It seemed as if all the creatures in the Dark Continent could sense Nen. "How long before we get there, Commander Ray?" "I don't know how long before we attract something we can't handle," Leon asked as the group rested from their most recent attack. "We might not make it by nightfall, sir, but there might be a chance. What do you think we should do?" Leon mulled it over. "We should keep going. As you said, we couldn't survive out here any longer." Ray nodded. "Okay then, men, pack up, we need to get going. I'm sure no one wants to stay the night out here." Everyone nodded, and they were on the move again. As night started to fall, the small, annoying attacks turned into dangerous, nightmarish brawls. But they were just able to scrape by, and soon the walls of Haven appeared over the canopy. "Well, we made it," and without a moment to spare, Leon smiled as they arrived at the front gate. Haven was built in a valley, one side completely shielded by a mountain range, and a 15-foot metal wall blocked off the valley entrance. "Well, Isaac, what do you think? Is it everything you dreamed of?" Leon smiled as the gates started to open with an audible groan of metal. Isaac didn't respond. Never in his wildest dreams would he imagine that not only would his best friend still be alive, but he would have created a city inside the Dark Continent. Inside the walls was a field of grass foreign to the swamps outside. There were easily hundreds of acres that would make suitable farmland. Other than that, there was a main building in the distance surrounded by smaller ramshackle tents. Leon could spot where the blimps had landed, depositing his men. "So how do you like my work? I made the whole thing with my 2 hands. Took a lot of effort, 50 years of backbreaking labor," Ziggy said while buffing his fingernails on his shirt. Leon looked at Ziggy. "How the hell are you Zeno's father? I haven't seen Grandpa smile once." Ziggy smiled. "My son never did like showing his emotions, and neither did his son. But at least now I have a grandchild who knows how to cut back and have fun." Leon shook his head. "Sorry to tell you, but the fun's going to have to wait. 10,000 hunters are going to be here any day now, and we need to start setting up housing for them." Ziggy crossed his arms. "I don't think we have enough materials or time to build that kind of infrastructure, even with your contributions." "Then we don't build. We mine into the mountain and create bunkers. My men have trained for this." Ziggy shrugged. "You're the head, it's your call." Leon turned to Ray. "Commander, have your squad return to their bunkers. They've done a spectacular job. All of you deserve the rest of the day off." Ray saluted. "Thank you, sir." "As for you guys," Leon said as he turned to face Netero and the Zodiacs, "go with them, and don't cause any trouble." Jing and Seiyu looked offended, but they didn't speak up. Leon sighed when that was all sorted out. Now it's time to run the city. Chapter 65 Leon sighed as he sat down in his commander's chair. He wanted to relax more, but he didn't have the time. Opening the tablet on his desk, Leon looked at the map displaying the area around Haven. He had about 3 square miles to work with inside the walls. Swamplands surrounded Haven to the north and east, and dense rainforest stretched to the south and west over the mountain range. Someone had designed an app that allowed him to view their resources and plan building layouts wherever Leon wanted structures to go. It was exactly like a video game. Casting the table to a larger screen, Leon started to drag and drop buildings, setting up plumbing and power lines. He was just about to finish the aqueduct when someone knocked on his door. "Come in," Leon said as he looked over and saw that Yuvagin was standing in the doorway. "What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy?" Yuvagin frowned. "You're no fun anymore. I just wanted to ask, why did you need us? Everything you've done so far you could have completed on your own." Leon smiled. "How long do you think all this is going to stay a secret? I have no doubt that news of the contract has reached someone's ears. And soon, the big ugly snake will rear its head. Let's just say, I'm going to throw you guys at every problem in my way." Yuvagin smiled. "I shouldn't have doubted you for a minute. Oh, this is going to be fun. I feel bad for all those poor old men. They might die from the shock." Leon shook his head. "If only it were that easy." "Well, can't you just go assassinate them?" Yuvagin asked, leaning against the wall. Leon shook his head as he started to build again. "If we do that, no one will know it was us. I want to take down the biggest player, so the small ones know not to mess with us." Yuvagin laughed. "You are one cruel bastard, you know that." Leon smiled. "How else could I tolerate your dumbass?" Yuvagin laughed even louder as he walked out of the room, leaving Leon alone. Ziggy smiled as he sat across from Isaac. What he had to do all those years ago wasn't easy. To leave his entire family behind for decades, but family came first. That's what he was told. "What I'm still trying to figure out is how you look so old," Ziggy blinked as Isaac broke the silence. "Here, take this, and you'll see." Ziggy handed Isaac one of the tinted vials. Popping the cork, Isaac looked inside to see a glowing green liquid. Isaac put the vial to his lips and drank the liquid. He gasped at the sudden surge of vitality rushing through his body. Ziggy smiled as the permanent wrinkles on Isaac's face started to fade. "What the hell is this?" Ziggy smiled. "It's sake made out of the nitro rice that I've grown over the years." Isaac was surprised as he started to feel the effects of the alcohol. "It's been years since any kind of drink was able to make me tipsy." Ziggy looked out over the balcony they were sitting on, the giant walls contrasting with the large green pastures. "So, what do you think of my grandson?" Isaac looked over at his old friend. "When I first saw him 10 years ago, I thought he was a scared boy who obeyed all the rules of his family. But now I see him for what he truly is." Ziggy smiled. "And that is?" "The most powerful man in the world. I don't know how much your strength has declined, but I don't think I can take him," Isaac said, also looking into the distance. "The future generations sure are scary. Those friends he has with him aren't pushovers either. The world is going to be in shock for a few months." Isaac sighed. "Do you have more of that sake? I have a feeling I'm going to need it." Ziggy smiled. "Sure. That vial you just drank cost 100 million jennies. If you want, I could break out a barrel." Netero sighed. "You haven't changed a bit. Tell me your bank account and have that barrel brought out." Ziggy nodded and pulled out a piece of paper. "What's this?" Ziggy waved his hand dismissively. "You're purchasing a barrel. We can't drink it all in one go, I just need you to sign this NDA." Isaac rolled his eyes. "Great. Now can we start drinking?" Once the barrel was brought up, Isaac and Ziggy started to catch up over the world's most expensive sake. Leon sighed as he finally finished building out the hunter's underground rooms, sending the layout to everyone who needed it. He was just about to sit down when someone else knocked on his door. "Come in. Is everything all right, sir?" Leon looked up to see Butch standing in the doorway. "Just tired. Nothing I didn't expect. So, what do you need?" "I'm just here to inform you that the hunters are almost here, and I thought you might want to be there." Leon nodded. "You're right. I might need to do some whip cracking. I want everyone to be in uniform and on high alert in 5 minutes. Also, tell Uvogin he might be able to crack some skulls." Butch saluted before departing. Leon sighed. "This isn't going to be fun, hey hunters." Short break. And again. "Let's just say you looked cute today and move on. I wanna draw." Chapter 66. Silva smiled as he sat in his chair. His son had taken full charge of the family, and was doing a fantastic job. Instead of running away from his problems, Leorio faced them head-on, refusing to let the Zoldyck name down. If Leon refers to Leorio, this translation seemed off. I've corrected to Leorio Zoldyck. If it was supposed to be another character, just let me know. While Silva loved all his children, he especially cherished Leorio. Without bearing the burden of being the family head, he now had more time to himself than he'd had in decades. With his 5th child due in less than a month, the future looked exceptionally bright. He only hoped this time they'd have a girl. Kikyo seemed determined to keep trying until they did. Leorio sighed as he donned his most imposing attire, a tight-fitting red and black suit adorned with his nation's symbol stitched on the chest. The design echoed yin and yang, with intertwined black and red dragons. Just as he was about to depart, an alert pinged on his phone, warning, "Prepare for a blast." A second later, a muffled boom shook the earth, even from indoors. Leorio guessed they'd finished setting the charges to clear the underground rooms. "You're still here? Thought you'd be ready to greet our guest," Maki asked, entering the room. Leorio shrugged, straightening his suit. "I like to keep them waiting, a power play on my part." Maki was silent for a moment. He knew she wanted to ask something. "So, about that thing you said earlier on the phone?" Leorio smiled. "What, that I loved you?" Maki blushed just then. "Well, what did you mean by that? Remember all those years ago when we bet on who'd complete the most hunts?" Maki frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Well, I checked, with this expedition, I have 3 more hunts than you. So, I have to ask, would you like to go on a date?" Her voice soared. "Yes." Leorio smiled as Maki leapt at his proposal. "That's great. Unfortunately, it'll have to wait a while. But I'm glad you said yes." Leorio couldn't afford to wait any longer. Outside, Uvogin was waiting, dressed in his usual tank top and shorts. "Well, looks like someone might be overdressed." Leorio snorted. "Unlike you, I have some degree of class. I don't think tank tops and shorts are appropriate attire when you're addressing 10,000 people as head of a budding nation." "Well, one thing's certain, every king needs a queen." For once, Uvogin one-upped him. Leorio tried to hide his embarrassment as Uvogin stormed off, chortling. A platform had been erected so that everyone could see him. Moments later, he turned and saw Goto walking over, an iPad in hand. "I didn't know you were going to be here. Who's in charge of the house back home?" "Canary, my protege, has taken over, with Tsubone supervising," Leorio answered. Goto took Canary under his wing when he visited Meteor City to find more butlers for the family's growth. He continued, "So, how long before our guests arrive, and is Netero going to say anything?" Goto cleared his throat. "The blimps should be here in half an hour. As for the Hunters Association head, he and your grandfather are indisposed." Leorio frowned. "Describe indisposed." "Well, They've caught up over a few drinks. And define a few drinks that can take out two of the world's strongest. Goto sighed. Apparently Netero bought a barrel of nitro rice sake and... Assuming nitro rice sake refers to a special sake brand, corrected to nitro rice sake. Leorio waved him off. As long as he paid and signed the contract. Okay then, speech to prepare. Half an hour later, the blimps landed. The cleared field filled with 10,000 bodies. When everyone was settled, Leorio stood behind a podium, flanked by Goto and Uvagin on his left and right. Clearing his throat, Leorio began. Welcome, hunters of the Hunter Association. I am Leorio Zoldyck, leader of the Dragon Republic. Today marks the beginning of a new era. As you see, the impossible has been done, a haven has been built on the Dark Continent. In the coming months, this compound will grow into a city. The Dragon Republic is thrilled to have the Hunter Association as an ally. We've entered an agreement, all matters must be reported to a Dragon Republic official. Don't worry, you shall be well compensated, with money, housing, or other equivalent value. With that said, please follow my men to your rooms. He gestured toward Butch, backed by 50 of Leorio's commanders. Just as they were about to leave, someone in the crowd shouted, "Why the hell should we listen to you?" Before Leorio could respond, Uvagin's bloodlust flared. Fortunately, his restraint held, only the one man who had spoken out was affected. Do not mistake our willingness to cooperate for weakness. Now, someone pick him up and have a nice day. Eventually, the crowd dispersed, leaving Leorio, Uvagin, and Goto alone. That guy was weak, Leorio rolled his eyes. I thought the hunter exam was supposed to be hard. I could have handled him without your interference. Uvagin shrugged. Yeah, but I wanted to have fun. Chapter 67 Somewhere in York New City, a man sat in a leather chair, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He hoped his subordinates would bring good news. Ever since the incident in Meteor City, business hadn't been the same. Sir, you need to look at this. The Don sighed as his right-hand man handed him a tablet. What is this, Beans? It seems the Hunter Association has sent a force of 10,000 to try and tame the Dark Continent. The Don couldn't help but laugh. Fools. No one can survive in the hellscape, not even us, and we tried once. That's the thing, sir, they've already set up a base with defenses. The Don's glass froze halfway to his lips. How long have they been there? Beans adjusted his collar. That's another thing, sir. The fortress has apparently been there for years. The Hunter Association has allied with a new nation, the Dragon Republic. And who's running this so-called country? Beans flipped to another page, revealing a photo of a young man with long, spiky silver hair standing on a stage. The Don's face twisted with rage. It was that little bastard from all those years ago. He'd grown up, and the Don decided it was time to wipe him off the map. I'm calling the other Dons, they need to know. Beans, start hiring mercenaries and contact our man on the inside. Beans rushed off to carry out the order, but once far enough away, he pulled out his phone. The call was answered immediately. Did you do what I told you? Beans nodded, looking around nervously. I gave him the information you passed me. He's furious, and he's going to contact the other Dons. Good. Stay accessible at all times. Beans put the phone away and looked around once more to make sure no one had seen him. Goto smiled as he tucked away his own phone. His master had been right, the Mafia would move quickly. I need to get back to work. So much to do. Meanwhile, Leorio was overseeing construction of a canteen for the hunters, a place where they could buy supplies. It was partially built into the mountain so hunters living below could easily access it. Leorio studied the blueprints when sirens began to wail. What's going on? A second later, his phone rang. What is it, Butch? What's happening? There's a beast horde 5 minutes out, about 500 strong. Leorio sighed. Zoldyck had written about beast hordes in his notes. Assuming Ziggy refers to Zoldyck, a known Zoldyck ancestor. Some beasts could influence weaker monsters, riling them into a frenzy. Fine. Have everyone retreat inside the walls. I'll handle this. He hung up on Butch, then called Krilo. I assume your call has to do with the alarm? Leorio rolled his eyes. Just get everyone on the wall. The spider needs to feed. Within 5 minutes, the walls were manned. It's about time we got some action, Uvogin said, cracking his neck and fingers. Just keep your brute strength under control, Nobunaga warned. Uvogin grinned at him. I bet I get 3 for every one you kill. Nobunaga gripped his sword handle. Maybe I'll cut that ego down too. At that moment, several drones flew overhead, hovering. What the hell are those for? Someone asked. What, you thought I called you out here just to fight beasts? Leorio jumped onto the wall, dressed now in athletic gear instead of his suit, unrestricted for combat. We're going to put on a show, and then accidentally leak it online. Phaeton glared. So, we have to hide our strength? Leorio smiled. That's the best part. Go all out. A moment later, a sound like thunder rumbled through the valley. Well, what are we waiting for? Uvogin leapt from the wall, with everyone else following suit. For the first time in years, Leorio felt the rush of battle. Oh God, I needed this. Uvogin slapped him on the back. What, you become a desk jockey these past few years? Yet somehow, I'll still end up saving your ass, like always. Leorio grinned as Uvogin scowled and backed off. Another win for him. 8 Phantom Troop members stood in a line as the first wave of the horde broke through the swamp. Inside the mountain, eyes turned to a mounted screen. It flickered, then displayed what looked like drone footage. What's going on? If you shut up, maybe we'd find out. What did you say, you shit? Both of you shut up and look. Silence fell as a live feed of the land outside the wall began. Trees toppled, then beasts of every kind poured from the swamp. That can't be real, there must be hundreds. Wait. Are those people? The camera zoomed in on 8 figures standing between the fortress and the beast horde. Are they suicidal? They can't seriously take them all on. I don't know, I tried asking the pink-haired one on a date yesterday and almost shit myself. The hunters murmured among themselves, eyes locked on the screen, waiting to see what would happen next. Chapter 68 The first to act was Uvogin. Charging headlong into the beast horde, his fists began to glow red. He slammed them into the ground, causing a localized quake. The earth erupted, swallowing dozens of beasts as the terrain split open. Pakinoda and Franklin stood back to back, gunning down the Nen-siphoning bats attacking them from above. Maki looked unbothered as several beasts lunged at her. Just before they reached her, their bodies suddenly burst apart. Maki calmly closed her hands, revealing a bubble-thin thread barrier that had been shielding her. She extended her threads and attached them to intact animal corpses, manipulating them like puppets. Under her control and imbued with Nen, the dead beasts moved with enhanced speed and strength. Nobunaga had drawn his sword and glided through the horde untouched. Anything that entered his 3-meter kill zone was instantly sliced down. Phaeton, on the other hand, was deliberately absorbing damage. Leorio watched curiously, noting that the more pain Phaeton endured, the stronger his Nen became. Krilo unsheathed an unusual knife that Leorio recognized. It was one of Ben's knives, legendary daggers forged by a serial killer who had made several of them. Leorio admired the finesse Krilo displayed with the weapon. I guess I need to get in on this too, Leorio muttered with a grin. As the final line of defense, he turned to face his approaching enemies. Drawing his sword, He relished the familiar grip in his hand. As the first beasts rushed at him, Leorio's figure began to flicker, like a mirage. From his perspective, time slowed to a crawl. Everything around him nearly froze. Moving like a ghost, Leorio delivered fatal strikes while weaving effortlessly through the slowed world. After downing 30 enemies, he released the temporal effect. In an instant, 30 beasts dropped dead. From the outside, it appeared he had teleported through them, slaying them in the blink of an eye. Grinning, Leorio repeated the feat, vanishing and reappearing across the battlefield, his sword piercing ribcages and slitting throats with clinical precision. Despite their efforts, more beasts continued to surge from the swamp. But it was no problem for them. 6 minutes into the massacre, the air and ground quaked as something massive roared. Every beast froze. Ears pinned, tails dropped. "Looks like a big one's coming," Uvogin muttered, grinning as he dropped his latest kill. His fists dripped with dried blood, and steam rose from his overheated body. A few moments later, the source of Leorio's new problem stepped into view. He had to crane his neck just to see the creature's face, a towering, 20-foot ape that glared at the haven's wall. Leorio absently wondered if the creature had once inhabited these mountains, even as he prepared to make a move. But before he could act, a surge of Nen caught his attention. He turned to see Phaeton, now encased in sleek, obsidian-black armor, holding what looked like a miniature black hole over his head. Without a word, Phaeton tossed it gently into the air. The black hole hovered over the ape's head for a moment, then expanded violently, engulfing its skull before vanishing. The creature's body collapsed with a tremor. At the same time, the rest of the beasts turned and fled into the swamp. "Damn it, Phaeton. Could you at least give us a warning?" Nobunaga barked, glaring at him. Phaeton, dismissing his armor, replied coolly, "You're just jealous I got the kill." Before their argument could escalate, Krilo interjected, "That's enough, you two. We've had our fun. Now it's time to get serious." Leorio ran over to the ape's corpse. Something had caught his eye. Kneeling where the beast's heart should be, he detected a faint Nen signature. With a sigh, Leorio rolled up his sleeves and plunged his hand into the still warm body, grimacing as he dug around its innards. When his arm was nearly elbow deep, his fingers brushed against something solid. Grasping it, Leorio yanked free a strange stone. "What the hell is that?" Uvogin peered over his shoulder, gawking at the small gemstone in Leorio's hand. The gem pulsed softly with internal light. Heat radiated from it. Leorio shook his head. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Using a cloth, he wiped the blood off and pocketed the gem. "Why do I get the feeling we've got an uphill battle ahead of us?" "I don't know why you look so down. Uphill battles are the most fun," Uvogin said cheerfully. Leorio sighed at Uvogin's antics. Inside the base, silence reigned. Everyone who'd seen the feed was stunned. Any thoughts of deceiving their hosts had evaporated. The shockwave of the ape's arrival, and death, had been unmistakable. At that moment, they all understood, a new power was rising. Chapter 69-. Once Leorio confirmed that all significant threats were neutralized, his soldiers began butchering the more intact beast corpses. They had to move quickly. If the bodies remained exposed for too long, they risked attracting another horde. Leaving cleanup to his commanders, Leorio returned to his office and retrieved the gemstone he had taken from the ape. He called the one person who might know something about it and waited as the call connected. "El Leorio? Why are you calling so early in the morning?" "It's 4 in the afternoon, Grandpa. But that's beside the point, we were attacked by a beast horde." Zoldyck sounded like he sat up immediately. "Were you able to kill the primal?" "If you mean the 20-foot-tall gorilla, then yes. That's why I'm calling. I found a stone in its chest. I was hoping you'd know what it is." Zig laughed. What you found is the equivalent of striking gold. Where are you? I'll come right over. Minutes later, Zig knocked on Leorio's door, looking disheveled. So, how did reliving your college days go? Leorio teased. Zig rolled his eyes. Shut up and let me see the core. Assuming he meant the gemstone, Leorio handed it over. Holding it up to the light, Zig examined it closely. It's not top grade, but it'll fetch a pretty Jenny. So what the hell does it do? Zig smiled. Break it, and you'll see. Leorio frowned, but obeyed. With a snap, the gem crumbled into dust, and suddenly, his aura surged explosively. What the hell was that? Leorio dropped the pulverized core, stumbling slightly. I call them beast cores. As you've noticed, the beasts here can sense Nen, and they grow stronger when they consume it. When one becomes strong enough, its Nen condenses into a solid stone. These cores allow them to use Nen in ways I still don't fully understand. Leorio reflected. For his Nen to spike like that in an instant was unheard of. His grandfather had spent years meditating in a cave just to make breakthroughs. We should send out hunting parties to locate more of these primals. If we get enough cores, maybe we can study them, maybe even replicate them. Zig frowned. Don't use too many of them at once. Trust me, it won't end well. What happens? You don't want to know. With that, Zig left, leaving Leorio alone. With nothing else pressing, Leorio sat at his desk and reviewed the backlog of messages and notifications he'd received during the break. The next 3 weeks were peaceful. The canteen and the shop were fully operational. Still, the hunters began complaining about being cooped up inside Haven for too long. After a few days of complaints, Leorio relented and allowed 3 teams to venture into the wild. They returned an hour later, battered, bruised, and humbled. It didn't silence all complaints, but it helped. Leorio remained hesitant to let hunters explore freely while his scouts were still mapping the region. In just a few weeks, those scouts discovered 5 major threats. Each beast was found guarding a valuable resource. Leorio marked their locations on a map. He didn't need to confront them yet, but eventually, they would. Meanwhile, Godo reported that Beans had been blackmailed into spying on the Mafia. Leorio wasn't particularly worried. Their leader was driven by rage, and in nearly every category, Leorio's forces held the upper hand. He was studying Godo's most recent report when an email popped up on his phone. It was from Godo. Your test subject is here. Grinning, Leorio stood and started making calls, organizing people to prepare the food they had readied. Outside, a helicopter hovered as it lowered a large, reinforced cage. Once it touched the ground, Leorio's men rushed to secure it. Standing before the cage, Leorio watched as massive troughs and barrels were brought out of storage. Sir, are you sure this is a good idea? We don't know what side effects it could have, Godo warned. Leorio waved him off. I don't want anything bad to happen to him either. But we need answers. Godo nodded. The cage doors opened, revealing a 20-foot-long leopard, deep in a tranquilized sleep. The soldiers tensed as it began to stir. Without hesitation, Leorio approached and gently patted the beast's snout. Stop faking it. I know you're hungry. Immer glared at Leorio as he rose to his paws. Don't give me that look. We both know you'd never get into the cage willingly, so we had to sedate you. Immer chuffed and lumbered over to the troughs, burying his face in the food. That's right. Eat it all up. Just keep eating. We'll know soon enough, my loyal test subject. Chapter 70 Leorio watched as Immer pounced on the troughs like he hadn't eaten in 3 days. Sir, are you absolutely sure this is safe? Asked a nearby soldier. Leorio shrugged. My grandpa said that when animals eat Nen-rich sources, they grow stronger. I just need to know if it's exclusive to the beasts here, or if it's a universal law. The meat Immer was devouring had come from the primal ape that had attacked them. Once Leorio confirmed it still retained Nen, he had Immer shipped in to test his grandfather's theory. Within minutes, all the meat was gone, and Immer began drinking from the barrels. Mewling, he collapsed and began rolling drunkenly in the grass. "Sir, please don't tell me those barrels are full of sake," Godo said with concern. Leorio grinned. "Of course they are. Don't worry, grandfather's been brewing this stuff for decades. We've got around 500 barrels." Walking over to the drunken cat, Leorio placed a hand on Immer's stomach and closed his eyes. He could feel something. With a sigh, Leorio chalked it up as a success. Whatever was happening inside Immer would take time to manifest. "I want a squadron monitoring him at all times. If he starts acting up, call Maki or me, we'll keep him under control." Leaving his inebriated test subject in trusted hands, Leorio headed to a meeting with Netero. When Leorio entered the room, he almost didn't recognize Netero. Nearly all of the old man's wrinkles were gone, and he now had a full head of hair. Leorio could also feel some of his strength had returned. "I see you're finally up from your coma. Pleased with the changes?" "I just wish Zig had warned me I'd be out for a day," Netero replied. "But I feel better than ever. Anyway, what did you want to talk about?" Leorio smiled. "It's been a month since our initial agreement. I think it's time we made it official. I've got no issue signing another contract. But why now? Because enemies are closing in. I want to ensure that when things get serious, you don't flake." "We both know I wouldn't." Leorio shrugged. "Maybe. But that new look doesn't fool me, and I prefer something more binding than a promise." He pulled up a document on his display and passed it to Netero. "It's everything we agreed on. For 15 years, the Hunter Association won't build anything outside of Dragon Republic territory." Netero looked it over before signing. "There. Satisfied? Don't look so irritated. You know you got more out of this deal than I did." Netero scoffed. "And that's exactly what worries me." Leorio smiled. "Now I can bring you in on the bigger picture. The Mafia knows about my little project, and they want to destroy everything I've built." "So you want the Hunter Association to deal with them?" Leorio laughed. "No. That wouldn't help us at all. We know they're planning to attack within a month. When that happens, we're going to hit them instead." "Why split your forces? Why not strike first?" "Because that's a waste of time. When the Mafia moves, they'll have to trek through miles of beast-infested swamp. My goal is to make sure they never reach our walls." Netero narrowed his eyes. "How do you plan to do that?" "My grandfather told me that when animals eat enough Nen-rich materials, some become primals and assert dominance over weaker beasts." "You're going to tame a primal? What does that involve?" Leorio shook his head. "Not tame. Create." "You can make them?" Leorio shrugged. "I think so. We've got experiments underway, and they've shown promising results." Before using Immer as a subject, Leorio had several other beasts fed the same meat and sake, though in smaller quantities. While none of them became primals, they did grow significantly stronger. After their discussion, Leorio left Netero to reflect. For once, Leorio wasn't rushing. Housing construction was progressing, people were tired of living underground. Goto also informed him that a new batch of soldiers had begun training. Just as everything seemed to be settling into place, a roar shattered the peace. Recognizing Immer's voice, Leorio rushed toward the source. When he arrived, he barely recognized his companion. Immer had grown, now 25 feet long and 10 feet high. A second tail lashed wildly beside the first. Leorio ran to the quadrant captain. "What the hell happened here?" The soldier saluted. "Sir, we're not sure. One moment he was still acting drunk, then he suddenly shifted. We were about to call it in when he roared. Nearly deafened all of us. Leorio turned his eyes back to Immer, who now towered in the clearing. Besides the physical change, Leorio could sense something deeper. Immer's aura was different, denser, more commanding. Leorio smiled. I guess it's time to run some tests. Chapter 71 was an author's note. Sue skipped. Chapter 72 Ziggy couldn't believe what his grandson was doing. What do you mean he went outside? Shouldn't you have sent someone with him? Ziggy snapped at Godo, bristling with outrage, but the butler didn't flinch. He's not alone. Sir Leon has Immer and Ms. Maki, and if you watched this footage, you'd understand. Ziggy growled, but then he watched a video feed from the security camera. The image was blurry, but Ziggy saw Immer transform into a primal creature before roaring. Shock replaced concern. That little bastard did it. Why didn't I think of this? This changes everything. You know, when you asked me on a date, this wasn't quite what I had in mind, Maki murmured as she leaned back against Leon. Leon gave a soft smile. Come on, don't tell me this isn't pleasant. Maki and Leon rode on Immer's back as he traversed the forest behind Haven. When Immer decided to survey his expanded territory, Leon had asked Maki if she was ready to join him on their date. So far, no wild animals had appeared. Immer was an effective deterrent. Leon tightened his arms around Maki's waist. I'm so glad you agreed to come with me. Well, I'm glad you finally had the guts to ask, Maki replied. Leon chuckled. I thought if I asked you, you might cut them off. Maki tilted her head toward Leon. I always would have said yes. I liked you from the very beginning. Leon smiled, leaning in to meet her, and she didn't pull away. They shared a gentle kiss. After a moment, Leon pulled back and smiled. I suppose we ought to make up for lost time, he said, and they kissed again. When they broke apart, Maki was straddling Leon's waist, her head resting on his chest. As they relaxed on Immer's broad back, Leon and Maki gazed up into the forest canopy. Do you regret it? Leon asked softly. Regret what? Maki replied, snuggling closer as if feeling a chill. Meeting us. I wonder what your life would have been like if you hadn't met us. I don't know, I never had one before the troop. My life then was just training and killing. Not bad, I was born for it, but I think I'd eventually lose myself. Leon looked at her, pulling Maki closer. Finding you guys was the best thing that ever happened to me. They fell silent, content just to be together. As dusk approached, Leon had Immer return to Haven, as he'd been gone all day. So, did you two do it? Leon rolled his eyes at Uvagin, who leaned behind the front gate. Maki frowned and gently gagged Uvagin with a string, but she was blushing. No, still pure as a nun, thanks for asking. Uvagin snorted through the gag. After Leon promised Maki another date, he called a meeting with Ziggy, Godo, and Butch. I never have important news to share, Leon said as he took his place at the head of the table. I've discovered a way not only to ensure safe passage through the forest, but to weaponize the animals against our enemies. Ziggy grinned. It's that cat of yours, isn't it? Leon returned the smile. As most of you know, we've successfully created a primal. Animals here can sense Nen, they'll instinctively avoid stronger beings or their territory. So what's our plan? Butch asked. This wasn't his field. I think we should start domestication of animals, and also ramp up production of nitro rice, Godo suggested. Are we trying to create several primals or a single powerful one? Butch continued. From my observations, the stronger primals become, the more they need to eat to grow, Ziggy added. Leon nodded. Good point, we should classify primals by tier, and I may try to track down others to feed ours. In the end, they decided on both paths. Using the Hunter Association, they'd hire growers and hunters to maximize output. The goal, to have 5 primals ready by the time the Mafia attacks. In a well-lit room, 10 men sat around a table, with Bean standing by the door. Does everyone understand the plan? We're not idiots. We agree on something at last. The Zoldyck family is no longer essential, we can train our own assassins if needed. But there's more. We don't know where their actual base is. That's irrelevant. We've narrowed their position to the northeast shore, it won't be hard to find them from above. I still don't like it. We don't know their numbers, allies, or anything else. Stop acting like they're a national power. Our estimates say they have no more than 500 men, and it's unlikely any of them use Nen. Our shadow beasts have never failed us, and they won't fail this time. Fine, I'll go along with the plan. But if this backfires, I won't stick around, one cautioned. After the meeting, Bean called Goto and informed him that the Mafia was on the move. Chapter 73 Things only got more challenging as time passed. Leon started to feel like things had been going too smoothly. Every hunting expedition he ordered ended in failure. So far, 1 squad had been completely wiped out. It was all part of the effort to hunt more animals to feed Immer. Since their first beast horde, their meat supply had run low. Leon had even tried hunting with Immer, but that had only limited success. Leon slouched in his chair, fretting over what to do. For the first time, he was at a loss. Still having trouble? Leon looked up to see Maki standing over him. Yeah. Our hunting methods just don't match the kind of beasts we're dealing with. All these animals can sense Nen to an insane degree. Even using Zetsu, the beasts still somehow detect the Nen we've previously omitted, Leon muttered, slumped in frustration. Maki frowned. How are they sensing it, though? Leon blinked. What do you mean? I mean, we use Gyo to perceive Nen, but none of these creatures actually use Nen. They just seem to sense or even feed on it. Leon suddenly sat up. It can't be that simple. Right? Without warning, he stood, gave Maki a long kiss, and dashed out the door. Calling Goto as he ran toward the surveillance wing, he barked, Goto, get Ziggy and Butch. I think I've found a lead that might solve our problem. When Leon entered the security room, the 3 guards on duty instantly stood at attention. I need you 3 to pull up all body cam footage of our squads encountering beasts in the wild. The men turned and typed furiously. Within minutes, they compiled the footage. Thanks, gentlemen. You can take the rest of your shift off. Once the room was cleared, Leon waited for his 3 advisors. Why'd you call us here, son? Asked Ziggy, as the others arrived. Leon turned to face them. I think I've figured something out. He played a video showing one of their squads being attacked. So why show us this? Butch asked, arms folded. These men were trained for years in stealth ops. I even taught them a technique to mask their scent. And they were using Zetsu. So the question is, how did the beast still detect them? Good question, Ziggy admitted. I don't know how far along our training has come, but none of our assassination techniques are working here. Leon nodded. We've been treating these beasts as if they're just animals, but they're not from our world. I want our labs to start dissecting these things. Figure out what makes them tick. They've been exposed to Nen for millennia in ways we haven't. They lack tech, but they may have evolved biologically to interact with Nen on a deeper level. We need to find the missing link. We might not have all the facilities for that, sir, Goto said. Right now, we only have 3 biologists. And with the storm system overhead, we can't ship anything in or out. Leon sighed. Goto was right. How long before the storm clears? Goto checked his display. At least a month. Leon sighed again. Fine. Just make sure those 3 biologists have everything they need. I want this to be their top priority. Make sure they understand, I expect results. And there's a huge reward for whoever cracks this. After Butch and Godo left to carry out his orders, Ziggy stayed behind. You okay, son? Leon dropped into his chair. It's nothing I haven't dealt with before. Things are heating up. But I've got a remedy. Ziggy raised an eyebrow. Oh? Care to share? Leon smirked. You know, I've never been drunk. Never thought I would be. But that sake of yours might do the trick. Leon ordered a barrel of sake and called Uvagin and Nobunaga to see if they were down to get drunk. The next morning, Leon groaned. His head throbbed like it was trying to break free from his skull. Stumbling to the sink, he punched his stomach 3 times, then hit his throat, vomiting violently. Wiping his mouth, he instantly felt better. He looked around the wrecked room. 3 sake barrels stood in various states of disarray. He walked to the iron door and hit the intercom. Hey, you can let us out now. The intercom buzzed, and the door unlocked and swung open. At that moment, Uvagin and Nobunaga groaned awake, clutching their heads. Shit. That was good, Uvagin muttered. But I feel like crap. Leon shoved both of them toward the sink and performed the same stomach throat trick. Thanks, Uvagin said, spitting into the basin. But next time, a warning would be nice. Nobunaga stretched. Anyone remember what the hell happened last night? Well, I don't know the details, Leon said, gesturing to the wreckage. But I'm glad I had the foresight to lock us in. Uvagin chuckled. I really hope the damage bill isn't too steep. Leon grinned wickedly. We'll figure something out. Chapter 74-. 3 days later, Godo called Leon. Their biologists had found something. Heading down to the lab, Leon found 2 men and 1 woman standing in front of a dissected snake. The creature was nearly 20 feet long and as thick as a barrel. So, what have you found for me? I hope it's something we can actually use. The oldest man nodded. Yes, sir. We've dissected 30 specimens, and all of them have an extra region in the brain. After running several tests, we've narrowed it down as the organ responsible for sensing Nen. Leon frowned. Do you understand how they sense Nen? The biologist began to sweat. We have a few theories. But we're running out of resources, and without more. Leon raised a hand to cut him off. As I said before, as long as I see results, your research remains top priority. The biologist sighed in relief. Thank you, sir. We're confident we can have it all figured out within a week. After leaving the lab, Leon turned to check on another of his projects. Pulling up a map on his display, he reviewed what he called the hunting grounds. They had designated a region in the forest and swamps where the beasts were weak enough to be hunted safely. While Leon did allow hunters to venture into the grounds, he imposed strict limits to prevent population collapse. Hunters could trade their prey for benefits, like a drop of nitro sake or access to rooms in one of the newly constructed above-ground apartments. There were 3 blinking dots in the hunting grounds, indicating 3 groups of 12 hunters. Leon pulled up a weather map and saw that the storm system showed no signs of moving off. But there was an upside: the Mafia couldn't send anyone in to attack under such conditions. Still, the storm had become a major logistical problem. Nothing could be shipped in or out, and their resources were starting to dwindle. Fortunately, their agricultural development had begun to pay off. One of their main crops was barley, which was ideal under the circumstances. Any surplus grain was distilled into whiskey. It wasn't quite the quality of Ziggy's sake, but it would still sell at a premium. Leon checked their current inventory. Funds were running low, but Godo had drafted a plan to sell beast pelts on the black market, alongside some of the nitro sake. That would buy them time, but ultimately, they needed a self-sustaining economy. That meant building a private business sector and establishing taxes. In his earlier short-sightedness, Leon hadn't negotiated tax rights into the Hunters Association agreement, but he still held the upper hand in that deal. Leon started thinking about going public after resolving things with the Mafia. Taking out such a major underworld force would boost their status significantly, perhaps even to the level of the other ruling powers. Walking outside, Leon was instantly soaked by rain. It was more annoying than anything. He jogged over to a cliffside where Immer had dug out a cave. Inside, Immer was sheltering from the rain. He had grown again, and Leon could feel that he had reached stage 2 primal status. Butch had taken Leon's suggestion and created a ranking system for primals. Stage 1, capable of destroying a small town. Stage 2, could raise an entire city. Stage 3, potential threat to a continent. Stage 4, global threat. Leon made sure Immer was fed 3 times daily. However, the primal wouldn't let anyone else near him, so it was Leon's job to document all changes. Immer stood up and nuzzled against Leon. "Hey bud, you stink. When was your last bath?" At the mention of a bath, Immer retreated deeper into the cave. "Looks like we're doing this the hard way." Leon froze Immer, dragged him out into the rain, and then released the freeze. Immer tried to dash back inside, but there was no escaping the downpour. Laughing at Immer's misery, Leon pulled out a tape measure. "Come on, the faster I finish, the sooner you can go back inside." Immer, always smart for a cat, was clearly getting smarter every week. Leon wasn't sure if it was just age, or a side effect of becoming a primal. "Just one more thing I've got to keep in mind," he muttered. Immer had grown half an inch since the last measurement. "I think we might have it down to a science." Chapter 75-. Leon was on his second date with Maki when it happened. It had been a week since the storm system had finally dissipated. For the first time in days, sunlight shone down on Haven, and everyone was in high spirits. Leon's phone rang, and he knew it had to be important. He'd made it clear not to be disturbed unless absolutely necessary. Maki shot him a glare. He gave her an apologetic smile as he stood and stepped a few feet away to take the call. Leon answered. "What is it?" Goto's voice came through. "The Mafia has deployed their troops. 2,000 by sea, and another 1,000 by air." A cold smile crept across Leon's face. "Get everyone ready to run the experiment, and prepare our squads for deployment within the hour." "I'll see to it immediately, sir." Leon ended the call and walked back to Maki. "So, what is it?" "I assume our date night is over," Maki said flatly. Leon shrugged. "Maybe. But how about watching the fruits of our labor? The Mafia's attacking, and I want to see them pay." "You're not the only one. The Mafia split up our family years ago," Maki replied as she stood and walked over. "Are we using Immer?" Leon offered his arm. Maki took it. "Of course. If this works, we'll be nearly untouchable in our homeland." Maki rolled her eyes. "So this is our homeland now?" "Why not?" Leon smiled. "We know humans originated from the Dark Continent. We're just reclaiming our ancestral ground." Leon brought Maki to the command center. A large wall displayed feeds from surveillance cameras placed throughout the forest. "Butch, how long before they touch down?" The grizzled war veteran saluted. "ETA 1 hour, sir. We've confirmed they intend to establish a forward base before beginning their search for our location." "They must be out of their minds. They don't even know where we are, but they're charging in headfirst," Maki muttered. Leon grinned. "This is going to be better than I thought. Is Immer in position?" "Yes, sir. I've been told he understands his role." Leon clapped his hands. "Then send him out. I want everything recorded. Let's go, people, look alive." The main screen switched to footage from the camera mounted on Immer's back. Outwardly, Leon appeared calm and composed, but his heart was pounding. If this didn't work, all their efforts would have been for nothing. For the next hour, Leon watched as his people prepared for the assault. Then, it happened, one of the drones spotted the approaching fleet of airships. "All right, everyone, it's showtime. I want drones on them like flies on honey. And someone get me in touch with our mainland contacts." Butch began rallying the team. Leon and Maki took their seats in the observation booth, enjoying the spectacle. This would be the first major conflict their people would face, and Leon wanted to assess where improvements were needed. "You know," Maki said, resting her head on Leon's shoulder, "after this, there's no going back." "I never intended to go back," Leon replied. Maki smiled. "Good. Otherwise, I'd have to kill you and take over." "Oh really?" Maki tapped his chest. "You're too wrapped up in your plans. People are putting down roots here. I haven't had a real home since my parents died. But you're right, this is our homeland." Leon hadn't expected something so heartfelt, but he was glad to hear it from her. "We'll defend this place together, and make it our home." Maki leaned in to kiss Leon, just as the door burst open. "Oh, did we interrupt something?" Leon turned to see Uvogin and the rest of the Phantom Troop walk into the observation deck. Leon sighed. "Of course you're here. Do you have another hidden ability I should know about?" Uvogin vaulted over the couch and plopped down between Leon and Maki. "Nah. Just great timing. Looks like we missed the trailers." Nobunaga rolled his eyes. "Do you have to make everything a joke? How else am I supposed to cope? If I don't laugh, I'll end up a downer like the rest of you," Uvogin quipped. "Where's the popcorn?" Leon ignored him as the drone feeds showed the airships coming under attack from a massive flock of car-sized birds. Fortunately for the invaders, their airships were equipped with turrets that managed to fend off most of the creatures within a minute. Nobunaga exhaled. "Damn. We almost had our job done for us." Leon shook his head. "No, we need them to land. Otherwise, we'll have no one to test our toys on." He pressed the intercom button. "Butch, it's time to release the hound." "He's already en route, sir. So far, we're seeing promising results. Immer is gathering a horde as we speak." Leon grinned. "So this hasn't been a colossal waste of my time and money. Good to hear." Leon glanced over at Uvogin, who now had a bowl of popcorn in his lap. "I'm not even going to ask where you got that." Chapter 76-. The shadow beasts looked at the walls of Haven. The Dons had given them top-secret information. They had reached the island using a submarine to go undetected. Then they used Bat's ability to locate the base. "Worm, go deliver the explosives, place them anywhere that looks important." Al handed Worm a small bag before he dove beneath the earth and tunneled toward Haven. "So we just have to sit here and wait? That doesn't seem like much fun," Dog said, scratching his neck and looking around excitedly. "You know, I heard that the Hunter Association's chairman is in there. I wonder what reward we'll get for killing him." Al shook his head. "If we have time. But remember that our main target is their leader, Leorio Zoldyck." Dog snorted. "You never let us have any fun." At that moment, something exploded inside Haven's walls. Leech smiled. "Looks like that's our cue." Leorio was watching the beast horde tearing apart the Mafia's meager forces when the explosion hit. He immediately sprang to his feet and pressed the intercom. "Butch, what the hell was that?" "We are under attack, sir. We've identified 6 individuals as part of the Shadow Beasts, Mafia's most powerful Nen users. They placed explosives around the entire base. We have 50 casualties so far and several wounded. Focus on repair and prevent further injuries. Get the medics ready. I'll handle our guests." Leorio growled as he unbuttoned his suit jacket. "Are you sure you want to handle this alone?" He turned to Uvogin. "I failed, and as a result, my people are dead and dying. Besides, this will be a good warm-up." The shadow beasts stepped into haven and looked at the burning buildings in the distance. They didn't expect a thing. "How many did you think Worm got?" Dog asked just as Worm popped up from the ground beside him. Owl glared at Dog. "Focus, we need to find our target. Bat, do your thing." Bat opened his mouth and let out a sonic wail at a pitch too high for most to hear. When he closed his mouth, he said, "There's someone powerful running our way. I think it's him." Dog laughed. "Good, we don't even have to search. This'll be easy." Leorio was furious. The Mafia had destroyed what he'd worked on yet again. He vowed that after this, he and Uvogin would make them pay. When Leorio spotted the 6 figures standing by the ruined wall, he also saw his men's corpses bleeding out on the ground. His rage erupted. He unleashed all his aura, temperature dropped several degrees and the forest went silent. "You've all made a grave mistake. But I shall enlighten you before I send you to hell." The shadow beasts realized Leorio wouldn't be easy prey, they knew most of them wouldn't survive the night. Worm dove underground, waiting for an opening. Bat opened his mouth again and let out a sonic wail so powerful the earth shook. Leorio formed a wall of frozen air in front of him, blocking the sound. As he did, Dog howled and charged, teeth and claws bared. Drawing his sword, Leorio faced Dog as he tried to bite and claw. He leapt backward, avoiding Worm's attempt to grab his ankles. "Don't think I forgot about you." Leorio teleported beside Worm, drew his sword, and severed his hand. Then he blocked Dog's bite with his blade before kicking him in the stomach and sending him flying. Bat opened his mouth to unleash another sonic wail, but Leorio saw it coming and froze the air around his head. Bat's eardrums burst as his attack rebounded at full force. Worm tried again to grab Leorio, but he jumped, dropping him into Dog's path. Holding up his forearm, Leorio felt Dog's jaws dig into bone. Grabbing Dog by the neck, Leorio ripped him off and slammed him to the ground. Dog growled, "Why the hell are you moving? I injected enough tranquilizer to kill an elephant." Leorio smiled. He snapped Dog's neck. "That won't work on me." Then something grabbed Leorio's foot, pulling him into the ground. Before he could free himself, thousands of needles stabbed him. Looking down at his arm, Leorio glared at Porcupine. Raising his fist, he tried to slam the small man into the ground, but Porcupine's hairs acted as a cushion. Porcupine laughed in a high-pitched voice, "Sorry, that won't work on me. I can control the hair on my body." Leorio focused, and the air around them heated. His skin turned bright red, and the ground began to smoke. In a blinding flash, Porcupine was instantly incinerated. The air reached the temperature of the sun. Worm didn't escape either, the earth around him liquefied into molten slag. Leorio protected himself by freezing a layer of air around his skin, leaving him completely unharmed. Standing tall, Leorio looked at the 2 remaining shadow beasts. "I suggest you don't run. It'll only make your death that much slower." Chapter 77-. Owl was panicking. Leorio had defeated 4 of them, and what was that explosion? It was so bright and had killed both Worm and Porcupine without leaving a trace. As Leorio began walking toward them, Leech lost it and ran into the forest. Owl followed him, knowing he'd rather die in the woods than be captured by Leorio. Frowning, Leorio watched them flee into the darkness. Why do they always run? Sighing, he turned around. He needed to get everything back in order. Owl and Leech ran in the direction where the Mafia's forces should be. If they could lead Leorio there, maybe they could slip away during the chaos. But when the camp came into view, Owl and Leech lost all hope. Nothing was left standing. The campsite was stained with blood, trees were knocked over, and hundreds of beasts devoured the remains. Owl was just about to back away when he felt something breathing on his neck. Looking up, he wanted to move, but he couldn't. He could tell this was the end. Immer bit down on Owl's head, ripping it off with savage glee. Leech screamed when he saw the 20-foot leopard chewing on his comrade's bones. He turned to flee when something pierced through his chest, pinning him to the ground. Leech followed the long, black claw back to Immer, who began to toy with him, batting him back and forth with its paws, slowly beating him to death. In a few minutes, Leech was so bruised and battered that not even his mother could recognize him. Immer purred, then slowly bisected him with one swipe of its claw, finally ending his life. Over the next few hours, Leorio ran damage control. There had been 60 casualties from the bombing, and he made sure the proper compensation was sent to the families of those who had died. Leorio also thanked whatever star he was born under for having Butch as his commander. In the short time he was gone, Butch had already compiled a report detailing all property damage and personnel losses. Netero also demanded to speak with Leorio, as 3 licensed hunters had died, prompting a review of their contract and raising the question of whether the Dragon Republic would owe compensation. Leorio nearly lost his temper at that point, but Godo stepped in and represented him, saving face. There was a silver lining: the experiments with Immer had been a success. From what he'd been told, several plans were already underway to create more primals. He also learned that Immer had brutally devoured the last 2 shadow beasts. Leorio wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed, but he had to plan his next move. The Mafia was at a breaking point. More than half of their elite soldiers had died, and internal conflict would soon erupt. He signed the order to deploy 2,000 troops to attack the Mafia's home base. He had no doubt that by morning, the Mafia would cease to exist, for Uvagin would be going with them, and Leorio had told him not to hold back. It was midnight, and Leorio had just finished recording a message that would go live in 2 days, announcing his new nation. He collapsed into his chair and sighed. "It's not your fault, you know." Leorio looked up as Maki sat in his lap. "Death is natural, but I could have prevented theirs if I hadn't acted so aloof." "Ah, does my big strong man not like being in control?" Leorio smiled and wrapped his arms around Maki's waist. "You know that's not it. But maybe I should try controlling you." "You wouldn't dare." Leorio grinned wickedly. "You shouldn't have dared me." He turned Maki to face him and kissed her deeply. As he did, his hand stroked her hips and back, gliding over her smooth skin. Breaking away from the kiss, Maki was panting. "Do you want me to stop?" Leorio smirked as Maki shook her head slowly. Retaking her lips, Leorio began undressing her, giving her all the love and attention she could ever need. In the morning, Leorio and Maki lay spooning after their first night together. "You know, I'll kill you if I find you with another woman." Leorio stroked her hip. "After what we did last night, I don't think I'll need to go looking." Maki blushed. "Don't say stuff like that. I thought you liked it when I talked dirty to you." Leorio chuckled as Maki froze, then threw a pillow at him. Grabbing it, he pulled Maki even closer and kissed her neck. Moaning, Maki squirmed, but Leorio didn't let her escape. "Don't you have work to do?" Leorio looked at the impressive hickey he'd left and smiled. "They won't notice if I'm gone for a day." Maki buried her face in a pillow as Leorio's hands began to explore her body again. For the next hour, he made her emit all sorts of sounds. They were about to begin round 5 when Leorio got a text on his phone. "Oh, looks like I'm needed. We shall resume this later." Maki rolled her eyes. "I'm going back to sleep, something I wish you'd let me do last night." Chapter 78 What happened, Godo? "I was in the middle of something important." Godo turned to Leorio. "You have several emails from various leaders around the country. The report from last night's strike team has also come back." Leorio paused. Let me see the reports from yesterday's strike, then we can get into politics. Goto nodded. There were 3 casualties, but all 10 Dons have been eliminated, and in rather spectacular fashion. Uvagin live-streamed himself executing all of them. Damn. Well, at least the rest of the world knows we mean business. So what did we gain from the strike? Goto flipped to another page. A few billion in Jenny. We also managed to upload most of their information on various global figureheads, so we have a lot of leverage. Aside from that, nothing else of major note. Leorio smiled. Is any of that information about the government leaders who contacted us? Goto smiled too. Several of them have made it clear that they don't understand our power. Leorio shook his head. Why are there always idiots wherever I go? Fine, start light with the blackmail, and if they don't roll over, hit them harder until they understand. Goto nodded. I'll have it done by the end of the day. What about the countries wanting to cooperate? Leorio scratched his cheek. Ask them if they'd like to send emissaries to negotiate peace treaties and trade deals. Also, start sending teams to Meteor City, and begin paying people to become the first citizens of our great country. I will have it all arranged. Leorio smiled and hugged Goto. I want you to know that you've been a crucial part of all this. After it's done, you're taking a month off. Goto blinked before smiling. Thank you, sir. And before you go, I'd like to inform you that your parents are on their way here with your 3 brothers. Lady Kikyo is pregnant again. Leorio stopped. I assume Killua is still missing. Goto sighed. Netero says that Killua has found a friend, and they're currently on Greed Island. And I am pleased to report that Master Killua has learned Nen. Well, send someone to check in on him. I don't want him becoming a target. Goto adjusted his glasses. May I request to retrieve Master Killua myself? Sighing, Leorio shook his head. Sorry, but you're too valuable to lose right now. But I'll make a deal. If we can get everything sorted in a week, both of us can take a vacation to go find Killua. Thank you, Leorio. Leorio's day truly began after signing off on several building permits for housing, plumbing, and a new power plant. They were currently using one of the stones Ziggy had collected to power the city, but to expand output, they would need to upgrade the batteries and wiring to handle the increased voltage. The rest weren't as urgent: more housing, farms, and expansion plans. By the time Leorio had reviewed all the fine print, Goto had already begun blackmailing the more hostile government officials. Leorio noticed in the report that 5 individuals had been marked for death, and he approved the assassination orders, along with the release of incriminating evidence against them. He hadn't expected Goto to move so quickly. I guess he really does see Killua as his son. Shaking his head, Leorio focused on the task at hand. By noon, Leorio's hands had begun to cramp, something he thought was impossible. Goto was practically burying him in reports and documents he needed to review and sign. The butler had already arranged for several emissaries to arrive within a month and had drafted multiple contracts. Leorio looked up as Goto entered his office for the umpteenth time. Please, no more, I can't take it anymore. Fear not, sir. You can breathe easy for now. But I thought it important to inform you, the biologists had a breakthrough. Leorio sighed. And they need more resources, don't they? Goto placed another packet on his desk. This is the last one for a while, sir. But I must say, you brought this on yourself. Leorio sighed as he flipped through the requests for equipment he didn't even recognize. Yes, I suppose I did. That night, Leorio retired to bed, but Maki didn't let him sleep for long. It was a long week of paperwork and meetings, but Leorio finally woke up with nothing on his plate. Getting dressed in casual clothes, he found Goto waiting outside his door. As I promised, everything's taken care of. All that's left is to visit Killua. Leorio sighed. Do we even have a copy of Greed Island? Goto smiled. When we raided the Mafia, it turns out they had several memory cards for the game. I had one of the squads enter ahead of us to start collecting cards. Of course you did. Well, let's go. Leorio looked around the large open field he'd spawned into, with a single building in view. Humph. Looks like we've been transported. This doesn't feel like a game. Goto nodded. The Nen here is much weaker than it is back in the capital. Chapter 79 So the way this game works is there are cards people have to collect, and each card does something different. Goto nodded. That is correct, sir. Any moment now, we should receive a card that can send us directly to Killua. True to Goto's word, Leorio opened his card book, and sure enough, there was a new card. Smiling, Leorio held it up. Take me to Killua. Leorio felt his perception distort as he was transported at speeds he could barely comprehend. When it all stopped, Leorio looked around to find himself in a canyon. Just a few feet away, he saw Killua training with a boy around the same age, with spiky green hair. Both of them were using Nen to smash rocks, and Leorio could immediately tell that the other boy had talent. Overseeing their training was a small girl with blonde twin tails, a pink dress, and a parasol, Biscuit. Goto appeared beside Leorio a second later. That was most unpleasant. Leorio smiled and cupped his hands over his mouth. Killua. His shout echoed through the canyon, drawing the attention of all three children. Killua cursed under his breath and turned to run, but stopped as he felt a familiar presence envelope him. Gon looked at Killua, who had gone rigid under Leorio's Nen. What did you do to Killua? Leorio blinked. Who are you? Gon growled. Gon Freaks, Killua's best friend. Leorio chuckled. So you're Jing's kid. I guess the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. How do you know my father? Leorio sighed. I met him once, with the other Zodiacs. Why does that bother you? Gon clenched his fists. My father left behind a set of clues for me to find him. Tell me where he is. You're in no position to make demands. I still have your best friend under my control. Leorio felt Goto tense behind him, but the butler didn't question his decision. Don't you dare touch Killua. If anything happens to him, I swear I'll. Gon was cut off when Biscuit suddenly smacked him on the back of the head. Biscuit glared at Leorio. I think that's enough playing around for now. I don't think your brother is going to be pleased. Smiling, Leorio released his Nen hold on Killua. At least you were able to figure it out. Now unfrozen, Killua frowned at Leorio. What are you doing here, Leo? I thought you were in isolation. You've been out of the loop. Haven't you talked to anyone in the family? Killua growled. Illumi already tried to take me back, and failed. So don't even try. Leorio tisked. I'm stronger than Dad now, Killua. He teleported in front of Killua and placed a hand on his forehead. Don't move. His thumb pressed firmly into Killua's skull and pulled out a small needle. Looks like Illumi left you a gift. Leorio tossed the needle aside. So you guys are here to find his dad, right? He asked, nodding at Gon. Yeah. Biscuit is also teaching us advanced Nen techniques. Leorio narrowed his eyes. If you'd stayed with the family, you would have learned those techniques already. But now's not the time for that. We've got a blimp to catch. Killua blinked. Where are we going? Leorio stared at him. You really don't know anything, do you? Killua blushed and looked away. Smiling smugly, Leorio exuded confidence. You're looking at the leader of the Dragon Republic, the first and only power to settle the Dark Continent successfully. After that, it didn't take much to convince Gon and Killua to follow Leorio. All that was left was to visit the harbor master and persuade him to give them the card needed to return. So, are you satisfied, Goto? Killua is on his way here, and he's even made a friend, Leorio said, sitting back in his chair. Goto adjusted his glasses. Yes, I am, sir. Also, there are several documents you need to review. Leorio felt a headache coming on. How many is several? 384, sir. Rubbing his temples, Leorio sighed. Fine. But could you please look into hiring a secretary? Goto nodded. I already have several applicants lined up for you, sir. How can you be the cause of my stress and the cure for it at the same time? Goto smiled. That is my job, sir. That night, Leorio fell asleep at his desk and was woken by a scowling Maki, who promptly dragged him back to bed. Leorio was grateful to relieve some stress, as the next day, he'd have to deal with the ambassadors from the nations that had agreed to enter negotiations. All five acted as if they were more important than breathing, and Leorio had to restrain himself from physically crippling every one of them. But it was worth it. In the end, the Dragon Republic's future was secured for the next 5 years. They also had several hundred individuals from Meteor City undergoing the process to become the Republic's first citizens. The biologists also discovered a prototype device that prevented the Dark Continent's beasts from tracking humans. Of course, more funding and resources were needed, requests which Leorio signed off on immediately. He also selected a secretary, meaning no more paperwork for him. And that's a wrap, hunters. Shout out to the author. Love. Check them out. If you're new, like and sub to become a hunter. Officially. It helps a lot. Check community tab. Actually post stuff. Not just endless sub begging like some bots, embarrassed smiley face emoji, that's it. Also maybe tell me what you thought of the fanfic if you feel like it. Peace. And love y'all, headphone emoji, red heart emoji.